Chapter 91. The Ancient Greek God of Self-Abuse. Then, what is that? Daegyu's eyes were a little dull, and there was an inexplicable sadness in his heart. As a part of the earth, humans will also be infected when they see the pain of nature. This is the stamp of thought. Something hidden in the deepest part of the soul. Yake said coldly, as you see, as you hear. The pollution of rivers, the reduction of green plants, the decline of life, all these together are the call of the will of the earth. Yak opened his arms, and in an instant, the sky was suddenly covered with golden light. The spirit of nature was surging above their heads. It was the will of the earth responding to him, responding to Godzilla's call. On the ground, countless people watched this scene and raised their mobile phones to take pictures of this never-before-seen scene. Yake looked directly into Daegyu's soul, looking at the soul shining with gentle light. Didn't you ask me before why I was indifferent to human life? Now I tell you. Human beings are just a part of nature, but you are so arrogant that you want to tame nature. You know Yalian, so ask her why her era was destroyed. The will of the earth is roaring, and it is urging me all the time to get everything back on track. Come on, Daegyu, stand with me, and together we will end this era of ignorance. The man in front of him stretched out his hand, inviting Daegyu to follow him. Join us! Join us! Join us! The thoughts in his heart were like wildly growing weeds, constantly stirring and entangled in his heart. Daegyu pushed it away violently, as if rejecting his own instinct. No. No way. We humans can change. The earth will has not abandoned us, he is still watching us. Daegyu's eyes were red and he roared at Fang Zhou. Oh, this is really difficult. Yake held his forehead and said, even so, you are still willing to give me a chance. You are so kind. Assuming that the earth is determined to make the human race follow in Yalian's footsteps, it is entirely possible to control Daegyu with the stamp of thought. If he were still a human, there would be no way for Daegyu to break free. If they were of one mind and one body, he might still have a 50% chance of breaking free. In the current situation, there is only one possibility, he has become soft-hearted. I'm sorry. Yake looked up and said, such mercy will hurt you. Sorry. As expected. Yak didn't say much. In fact, he also expected that the Earth's will would not intervene. He said this just to see if he could force Daegyu to move to the next level, otherwise the fight would be too fragile. Things like Ultraman are still too idealistic. In that case, let's get started and see if your strength is worthy of your will. Yak twisted his neck, making a crackling sound. Boom! The ground where Jack was standing cracked, cement splashed, and he disappeared directly onto the rooftop. The next moment, he appeared in front of Daegyu and kicked Daegyu's head in the air. So fast! Daegyu's body reacted subconsciously, crossing his arms to block, only to feel as if he was hit head-on by a full-grown truck, with countless hammers hitting all over his body. Boom! Daegyu bent his legs and slid backwards, leaving a long trail on the concrete floor. A pair of Victory Team combat boots were completely worn out, showing just how much force was put into them. So strong, such a heavy whip kick. Daegyu's face turned red. Just now, there were some cracks in the bones of his arm, but they were repaired by the light flowing in his body. What's more fortunate is that Daegyu did not slack off during the previous training. He learned an ancient technique from the east from Captain Yak unloading force. Nearly half of the force was directed into the ground, and the remaining 30% was dispersed throughout the body to spread the damage. Fang Zhou smiled and said, haha, I'm better than before, and I've learned new things. But I only used the strength I had when I first descended. I am still in such a mess with only half of my strength. Can you do it in your human form? Although he said this, Jack's heart was beating hard. Damn it, what kind of person is this Daegyu? He has reached this level in just 1 month, and he even figured out how to unload the force on his own. It's outrageous. Yakdu suspected that the will of the earth was secretly giving Daegyu special treatment. Hiss, it's really possible. The will of the earth. What are you doing? I added a little bit of buff just because I was afraid you wouldn't enjoy the fight. You know me. Zygia doesn't count. Okay, I understand. Yak sighed silently. Every day, he was treated like a traitor. Daegyu, who was knocked 4 or 5 meters away, was a little confused for a moment when he saw that Fang Zhou did not pursue the victory. But he didn't have time to think. He unbuttoned his clothes and threw them on the ground, then took off his boots that were already showing his soles. Yak raised an eyebrow. What are you doing, seducing me? You, I. Daegyu's face turned red, but he forced himself to continue his actions. Slowly, Yak was shocked for the second time. He saw that under Daeko's clothes was the Godzilla training suit that he had made for him. Daegyu had told her before that he might bring it with him to daily exercise. Yak thought it was just a bracelet or anklet or something. Unexpectedly, that idiot Daegyu put on all of them. At this time, Yak suddenly remembered something. Could it be that this kid also brought this thing with him when he fought Gobnu? You should know that the exercise suit will adjust itself according to the user's body size and muscle strength. This means that after transforming into Tiga, the overall strength will soar 100 times. How cruel! Daegyu, you are a ruthless person. After untying the restraints, Daegyu threw the thing in his hand, which immediately smashed through the ground made of reinforced concrete. Dong dong dong! There was another series of loud noises, and the human named Daegyu broke free from the cage. Ah, such a long-lost feeling of comfort. Daegyu clenched his fists, feeling the light and strong body, his eyes fixed on Fang Zhou. Now it's my turn. Daegyu's back was slightly bent, and his marble-like muscles gleamed in the sun, like an ancient Greek sculpture. The magnificent power hidden in it was an unattainable luxury for ordinary humans. Boom! The rooftop seemed to be bombarded, and the deafening footsteps left clearly visible footprints on the ground. But what is incredible is that although we can see the movements, we have no idea where Daegyu is. Because the entire rooftop was covered with footprints, and they were slowly approaching the ark. Useless tricks. Yak shook his head. He was shocked by Daegyu's self-mutilation training, but facing real power could not be countered by fancy things. Yak casually raised his hand and clenched a fist. He turned his head and looked at Daegyu's surprised face. Didn't your teacher tell you that the real killer moves are refined, simple, and effective? Chapter 92. The speed is a bit slow, the legs and feet are weak, and none of the movements are decent. On the rooftop, two inhuman monsters collided with each other. The gusts of wind that arose in an instant left the sparrows that wanted to rest with no place to stand. A figure was knocked flying and hit heavily on the guardrail made of steel pipes. Fortunately, there was no problem with the quality, it was just bent and deformed, otherwise it would have really fallen down. In the smoke, Yak walked out slowly, his scarlet glowing artificial eyes revealing his joy for the battle. Tiga human body, is this all you have? Too weak. If you want to protect humans just based on your current appearance, you are not qualified. On the other side, Daegyu was gasping for breath and coughed up a mouthful of blood, feeling much better instantly. With that punch just now, he broke at least 2 ribs. Monster, it's a monster. Daegyu smiled bitterly in his heart. Could it be that he was so strong from the beginning? It was really intimidating. No wonder the will of the earth would come after him. I can still fight. Fang Zhou, don't underestimate me. Daegyu stood up with the help of the curved fence. Although Yak looks relaxed now, if you look closely you will find that there are parts of his Yak armor that are damaged and the armor on his hands is cracked, and it seems that it will break in the next second. Daegyu is too hard. Under the visor, Yak bared his teeth. This brat is too tough. Daegyu struggled to stand up, staring at the man in front of him. The suppressed anger in his heart and the fear of this battle that had accumulated for a long time exploded in an instant. Unconsciously, a layer of darkness covered Daegyu's eyes, and it seemed that there was another light giving him strength. Fight, fight! Kill you! Daegyu roared towards the sky, and murderous black energy gushed out, and a black figure appeared behind him. Dark Tiga! Damn it, what is going on? Yak's eyes widened, and he frantically dripped the will of the earth, asking him to give an introduction. How could I, such a big guy, become evil? The will of the earth said helplessly, Bao, you really can't blame me. I did give him a buff, but that was also the power left by Tiga from ancient times. To be honest, it should have belonged to Daeko. So what's going on here? Well, the earth will stammered, it's probably your fault. Aha! Yak was confused. What did I do? I didn't do anything. Seeing that its own idiot knew nothing, the earth will could only begin to explain. First of all, Tiga is a two-sided entity. In the ancient times, Tiga was originally dominated by darkness, but his bright side was brought out by Yalian. No matter how much you suppress it or eliminate it, you can never destroy this force. Now, due to the pressure from Yak, and the life of the entire city of Tokyo at stake, Daegyu is under tremendous pressure. Fear, panic, anger. All kinds of emotions became the nourishment for Dark Tiga, and Ark's training also played a good catalytic role. Although Godzilla's radiation can be used for training, the evil contained in it also infected Daegyu's heart and was absorbed by Dark Tiga. Finally, there is the buff of the Earth's will. According to the light in Daegyu's heart, it could have been barely suppressed, forming a strange balance, but the energy of Tiga left over from the ancient times was thrown on top. It's like throwing a match on a powder keg. Boom! It exploded instantly. What a sin! Jack rubbed his temple. What should he do? The Daegyu in front of him covered his head and knelt on the ground in pain, with violent darkness surging from his body. This force was very strong, but Daegyu refused to be enveloped by it from the bottom of his heart. Black dust was floating around Daegyu. Once it touched a solid object, it became extremely corrosive and the cement on the ground was eaten away piece by piece. According to the report of Ark's artificial eye, the gushing darkness formed a vortex at this moment. If there was no interference, it would completely swallow up Daegyu in 3 minutes. In fact, Yak could have left directly and transformed into Daegyu, the Dark Tiga, and would have followed his dark heart and caused crazy destruction. Under the ravages of the Dark Giant, Daegyu didn't even need him at all, he could tear the human world to pieces. Alas! It's a hard life. Yak let out a long sigh, and the next moment he disappeared from the spot, breaking through the layers of dark wind and coming in front of Daegyu. What are you going to do? Hurry, go away. Daegyu still retained his will. He didn't want to cause any harm, so he still persisted. Fang Zhou looked at him silently. You're Captain Yak, let me say hello to you. What? Daegyu looked at Fang Zhou in disbelief. Didn't the captain leave? But Yak did not answer Daegyu's doubts. Instead, he punched Daegyu extremely roughly, with huge power wrapped in blue energy. Daegyu, in a daze, flew backwards and fell to the ground. Wow, you are really cruel, Bao. The will of the earth has not left, hiding aside and watching the fun. Yak rolled his eyes, he's gone crazy. The best way to deal with this state is... He paused, then bared his pale fangs. Beat him. The best way is to beat the inner demons away with one punch after another. It is simple, brutal, and effective. The falling Daegyu is like a bird with broken wings. The howling hurricane plays music in his ears and his beating heart beats the drum of war. At this moment, he suddenly remembered that it seemed to be the same feeling when the plane crashed. In an instant, Daegyu's empty mind was instantly filled with darkness. Anger is gathering and tyranny is condensing. Boom! On the road, a black shadow fell to the ground, and the dust it raised made people around it cough. But I couldn't help but come over to take a look. The grey dust dissipated, and a black and silver Ultraman stood on the ground, his crystal eyes looking around, as curious as a child. Ultraman Tiga, it's Tiga. A little kid jumped up excitedly and went forward to touch the idol. But in an instant, the dark giant locked onto the child. Indifferent. Disregard. Just like watching an ant. Wow ah ah ah. The child took 2 steps back and cried out in fear, You are not Tiga, you are a bad guy. The shrill cry lingered in the ears of the dark giant, like countless crows cry at the same time. Very noisy. Very noisy. The dark giant opened his hand and slowly reached out to the child. Deep in his heart, the remaining consciousness of Daegyu, which was sealed in the crystal, was pounding the crystal wall frantically, not caring even if it meant shattering this last bit of consciousness. Don't touch him. You are not allowed to hurt him. Stop now, stop now. Daegyu knelt on the ground weakly, muttering to himself, Captain Yak, what should I do? A feeling of powerlessness swept over him, and he hated himself for not being strong enough to defeat the Ark and suppress the darkness. Kamen Ride. A mechanical sound rang out of nowhere, and another figure swooped down, stepped on the dark giant, and slid several meters away. Ark. Endless rage surged in the heart of the dark giant. Yak smiled disdainfully, bent down, and said to the giant under his feet, Come on, our bet is not over yet. Transformation. At some point, the belt around Jack's waist changed, and he gently put his hands together on the belt. Decade. Chapter 93. New armor covered Ark's body, with red and black stripes covering his thighs and arms, and a huge cross logo on his chest. Kamen Rider Decade. Dark Giant. Yak smiled contemptuously, let me test the quality. Dagu lost control of his feet and grabbed Yak's ankle and threw him far away. Yak immediately turned into a red phantom and was thrown at the wall of the office building. He crashed down several walls before stopping, and his whole body was embedded in the cement. Oh my god, I still have some strength. Yak, who looked like a mural, was a little surprised. This is what is called being twice as strong when blackened and 3 points weaker when whitened. In the distance, the dark giant was flying towards him, smashing down on Jack viciously and bringing him to the grass of a park. The originally neat grass was plowed into ugly furrows. The dark giant was like a mad beast at this moment, madly wanting to tear everything apart and kill the enemy in front of him. The fist was wrapped in dark energy and smashed mercilessly on Yak's armor. The deep and strange darkness tore everything apart, as if it wanted to drag everyone to hell. Annoying. Yak's telekinesis moved. Attack ride. Blast. The card box driver that was originally hanging on the waist turned into a pistol and appeared in his hand. He put the pistol to the dark giant's head and pulled the trigger. A series of light bullets bombarded the upper body of the dark giant like a rainstorm, forcing him to retreat. This thing is quite useful. Yak stood up and looked at the pistol in his hand, unzipped his belt again, and used his mind to put the card in. Attack ride. Illusion. In an instant, the dark giant pounced forward but missed. He suddenly discovered that the Yak in front of him had turned into 6. Come and catch me. If you catch me, I will let you he he he. The 6 arcs simultaneously raised their hooks to challenge the dark giant. The next moment, he raised his gun and fired again. The light bombs instantly submerged the dark giant, and the endless explosions burned the entire grassland to ashes. When the smoke cleared, the dark giant was seen standing curled up with his arms over his chest to reduce damage. Tisk, it's so hard. Yak glanced at the card box regretfully. Apart from Kamen Rider Arc and Decades cards, there is only the alienated Godzilla card. Not much, not as much as Brother Xiaoming. Seeing the attack stopped, the dark giant also slowed down and looked warily at Yak who surrounded him. The dark giant roared to the sky, the energy in his body surged, and the black and purple light turned into sharp blades, attacking the surroundings without hesitation. Since we don't know which one is real, just kill them all. The speed of the sharp blade of light was extremely fast. If Jack had not reacted quickly, he would have been pierced through the body immediately. It's still a little lacking. Jack looked at the armor that was missing a piece. Although the masked armor is powerful, it can only fight ordinary monsters in normal form. If a real fight comes, it will have to rely on Godzilla. Kill you. The dark giant who found his true identity rushed up immediately. Dagu, who had lost control, had no plan at all, like a hungry beast. Yak dodged very easily, put his hand lightly on the dark giant's shoulder, and gathered strength with his other hand. A crimson light appeared on his arm, as if condensed into solid explosive, compressing all the explosive energy. One can imagine how powerful it is. Dagu, try my punch. Yak bent down slightly, took a deep breath, and then threw out a punch. At that moment, time seemed to slow down, the bird's fluttering wings were clearly visible, and water droplets slowly fell from the air. Just like a mother's palm slowly touching her child's hair, Yak's fist gently touched Dagu's abdomen. Boom boom boom. Flames, red flames from hell devoured everything. The sweeping hurricane brought the flames into the sky, and the violent shock waves almost flattened everything. In an instant, everything was silent and the whole world was quiet. The dark giant was smashed into a folding screen by this punch, and crashed into the artificial lake with a huge explosion. Under the heat of the hot wind, a brief hole appeared in the artificial lake, and the ornamental fish in it were cooked immediately. About 3 or 4 seconds later, the lake finally refilled and submerged the dark giant. The water level has dropped by nearly half. After boxing, Jack stood there, quietly watching the lake surface gradually calm down. The attack just now was indeed terrifying, but he was facing the dark giant from the ancient times Tiga. Although Daegu is nowhere near as difficult as he was back then, he is still just as difficult to deal with as before. Boom! 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 The heartbeats of the beating war drums echoed throughout the city, and everyone's heart beat in unison with the sound. That's what I told you, how could you just lie down? Yak smiled with relief. Suddenly, a message came to my ears. Captain, this is Sakata. Because the noise you made was too loud, the victory team has already been dispatched. For a moment, Yak also had a headache. Now that the victory team has become stronger under his training, Yak can be more restrained, but the evil Dagu doesn't care about that and just comes up to greet him with a lightsaber in his hand. Although it couldn't cause any impact on the battle, if he accidentally bumped into something, it would be Jack himself who would be troubled in the end. There is nothing we can do. Yak finally called out to the system baby that he hadn't contacted for a long time, ahem, give me a solution. But the system's cold tone instantly made his face darken, 100 points per hour. Fuck, you are just stealing money, even the black agents are not as black as you. This made Yak so angry that he went straight to the Earth Will and said, give me a solution. But the Earth Will stammered, 1 hour. 200 points. No. I let it slip. I'm in a big hole. What did I hear? The Earth Will actually revealed something. For a moment, Yak seemed to understand something. I remember that your Earth Will should have a group chat, could it be that my dog system is this? The Earth Will hesitated, and even she herself didn't expect that she would accidentally let the secret slip. I understand. Seeing this situation, Yak finally figured it out, this damn system is made up by you guys with the will of the Earth. The so-called Pan-Earth Will Learning and Exchange Group is where you issue tasks. You think I'm a bastard, don't you? No. Absolutely not. The Earth Will quickly denied, although we treat you as a gold medal fighter, you are also paid. Besides, you are very important to us, and helping you grow is something we must do. How could we possibly do such a stupid thing as treating you like a nigger? If you quit, we would all be in trouble. Yak rolled his eyes, and then the will of the Earth came and stopped time. Not in a hurry to continue the fight, he asked again, now tell me what the travel points are used for. This. Do you know the Eternal Core? Chapter 94. People in this era call me the Earth's Core, and people in the ancient times respectfully called me the Eternal Core. I am the foundation of all ages and the eternal authority. I am the will of the Earth. A high and majestic voice resounded between heaven and earth. The space was surging like the tide, and the golden ball of light fell in front of Yak. It was just an illusion, but the pressure it exuded put a lot of pressure on Yak. Mobike. Kneel down. Sacrifice. A tangled mess of thoughts rises under the golden halo. The grass, the ants, the trees, and even the soil all paid homage to the apparition. Damn, what a big scene. Yak cursed inwardly, and was finally able to withstand the pressure when Godzilla's blue figure loomed over him, and he did not kneel down and beg for support. Tisk, it held up. The Earth Will muttered. Yak used his little finger to pick his ear, keep it short, I'm not here to listen to your bragging. This guy boasts so many titles, but other than talking about how great he is, there is no information at all. Pure water, right? The will of the Earth said, hee, your points are essentially the embodiment of the power of the Earth. We call it crystallization, and it can be used for anything. It's not an exaggeration to call it a wishing machine. As soon as he finished speaking, Yak's eyes lit up, what I mean is, can I also get the energy materials I need for sublimation? Indeed. The Earth consciousness gave a thumbs up in appreciation. Yak said, now, all the points I need will be converted into crystals. I want to see the real thing. Okay, boss. Thank you, boss. In an instant, a chill suddenly rose in Jack's heart. An ominous premonition is coming. Wait a minute. Before he could finish his words, the Earth Will had already completed all the work. Bing gong. Your crystals have arrived, 1,196 pieces. After deducting the handling fee, loss fee, and labor fee, 124 coins. The sweet voice of the Earth's Will sounded to Yak's ears like a fox that had stolen a chicken. For this reason, the Earth Will also explained considerately, according to the exchange rate of 100:1, since there is loss in the conversion process, and my work is also very hard, it is normal to collect some crystals. Ahem, my work is done. Bye, my baby. The speed of the Earth's Will is very fast. It comes slowly, but it only takes a blink of an eye to run away. No, you. Yak didn't react for a moment. Everything will be lost. Suddenly, the system fluctuated. It is from the Pan-Earth Will Learning and Exchange Group, a Gaia Earth Will who wishes to remain anonymous. That guy lied to you. For him, crystals are just like transferring them from one hand to the other. Although there will be some loss, it won't be that much. Well, that. Just a quick question, have you chosen the location for your ascension? Actually, my place is quite big, and I can also exchange crystals for you, and I only charge a little. Think about it, Yak Bao. My child, my child. He took more than 100 of the 13,000 crystals from me and even asked me to thank him. Evil villain. Yak's eyes were wide open and his back teeth were broken. It is a shame to hunt eagles all day and then have your eyes pecked by an eagle. As the will of the earth left, the still time began to flow, but before he left behind a huge golden cover that locked up the entire Tokyo. The cricket victory team would not be able to make a crack even if given 10 years. There is no mention of charges yet. How should I put it, there is some conscience, but not much. In the center of the artificial lake, a towering black column broke through the clouds and hit the golden bell, and the entire space began to shake violently. The accompanying black light caused plants to wither and buildings to rot, and the pervasive malice and darkness weighed on the hearts of every living being. A black giant appeared in everyone's mind. Magnificent, cold, terrifying. The enemy of all things. From the pillar of darkness, the figure of Tiga emerged. He lowered his head and looked at Ark on the ground. That's what I said. How could that kill you? Yak regained his spirits, and the dark giant, which was at a disadvantage at the beginning, became even stronger. Yak knew very well that the dark giant was using him as a whetstone. By fighting with him, he was slowly wearing down Daegyu's will until he killed Daegyu completely. But aren't you being too arrogant? Yak muttered to himself, looking at the black and silver giant in the sky. Are you so sure that you can defeat Daegyu? Are you so sure that your will is stronger than that human's? Are you so sure that you can beat me? He casually pulled out a night card, without even looking at it, and threw it directly towards his belt. Final attack ride. Decade. The holographic card-shaped light wall continued to extend towards the dark giant. Faintly, the dark giant also sensed that something was wrong, and in an instant he was at the other end of the city. But the card shadow seemed to lock onto him, made a big turn, and rushed towards the dark giant. Yak jumped up, used the card shadow to correct the trajectory, and kicked the dark giant in the abdomen. Daegyu was beaten into a folding screen again. Boom! A violent explosion occurred over the city. It's not over yet. Yak took over out of thin air, floated briefly in the air, took out the card and threw it into his belt. Kamen Ride. Arc. The armor on Ark's body was wrapped and fused by darkness. Tap the belt. Perfect conclusion. Learning end. Yak mysteriously disappeared in the air, and then appeared above the dark giant with a split kick. Boom! The fire started again. The dark giant fell to the ground with huge energy. Yak was suspended in the air and asked the system, how many crystals do I need for another Kamen Rider? 100. Tisk, it's so dark. Yak said disdainfully, deal. Then, a brand new card appeared in his hand out of thin air. Kamen Ride. Ajitwa. At this moment, the armor on Jack's body turned golden and two big horns appeared on his head. The golden overlapping horns gathered at the feet and stepped heavily on the back of the dark giant. Boom boom boom. With the triple kill, its power grows exponentially. The glass on the tall buildings was shattered into pieces, stretching for dozens of kilometers. The frightened people could only try their best to grab everything they could and pray that they would not be affected. This kind of battle has exceeded the scope of ordinary humans and is like a punishment from heaven. Snap! Yak gently landed on the fence and looked at the dark giant sleeping on the wall of the tall building. Don't play dead. Even if you read the memory of that human, this trick won't work on me. Chapter 95. Headquarters, I have arrived above Tokyo. The Victory Swallow 2 piloted by Lena stayed in the sky. The entire city of Tokyo is now blocked by the Golden Shield. We have no way to get in. A few minutes ago, the Far East headquarters received a high-energy response from Tokyo, and the TPC team members in Tokyo also sent images. It was two non-humans fighting in the city. The aftermath of the battle has left many people injured, but the local garrison troops did not have many weapons and could not participate in the battle at all. Captain Lena, can you get through to Daegyu's signal? The captain's voice was full of worry in the headset. When Daegu went on patrol, the last positioning signal stayed in Tokyo, but as soon as the victory team arrived, a golden wall appeared and blocked all signals. Hateful! Zinken hammered the hanging window, I'm here to attack. I don't believe that I can't blow this thing open. New town team, calm down. As soon as Irumahawe opened his mouth to stop him, Shinjo pulled the trigger and the laser of Victory Swallow number 1 hit the wall. Like a drop of water in the ocean, the laser was easily swallowed up and turned into ripples. Like water off a duck's back. Ah, this! The Zinken team members were silent. Could it be that the energy base is not enough? Otherwise, why not change to the captain's special missile? Wait a minute, New Town team. Captain Jujian seemed to sense Zinken's dangerous behavior and hurried to stop him. Captain Sakata of the support team has arrived at the scene. You go and assist them in the investigation. Clear. In a community on the ground, all residents were evacuated urgently, leaving only the support team to investigate. Sakata was holding a cigarette in his mouth, with a small stool under his butt, and he was propped up his head to look inside the golden wall. Vice Captain Sakata. After the Fiian landed, Lena, Zinken and others jogged all the way. Sakata raised his eyebrows and put out the cigarette butt in his mouth with one hand. Due to the effect of the enhancer, Sakata's physical fitness slowly began to move towards superhuman. Sakata's attitude towards Lena is still very good. After all, she has a special relationship with Daigo, and Daigo is Captain Ark's confidant. Even if Daigo takes over the captain position of the support team, Sakata would not be surprised. As for whether he would fight for it. Come on, Captain Ark is Godzilla. Your 18th generation is dead, and he is probably still alive. What do you have to fight for what Shiake has decided? Is it the lives of your entire family? Lena squatted down and squinted at the nearby wall. Captain Sakata, what is this made of? Why can it even absorb the laser bombardment of the Victory Swallow? We are still analyzing the specific composition of this thing, but one thing we can be sure of is that it is a gathering of energy, not condensation. Sakata said, poking his hand directly at it. This action almost scared the members of the Victory team to death. This unknown thing can also absorb energy. If you stick it on accidentally, it will eat up your whole body. Who can you complain to? Look at you guys. Sakata shook his head, the people on the Victory team are getting worse with each passing year. Aren't we the first batch? Lena muttered. The Victory team was proposed by Director Sawai, and is an expert team whose main task is to investigate supernatural phenomena. It was established in 06, which is only a few years ago. It's not important, just look at this. Sakata said as he scratched at it with his hands. What is very strange is that this golden wall has no harm to any physical objects. It is like plasticine, changing shape in the hands. Sakata said, we also used missiles to bombard it, but it had no effect. The metal casing of the missile sank into it and was finally spit out and fell to the ground. No explosion? Zinken asked. No, when we disassembled the missile, we found that all the explosives inside had lost their effectiveness. Sakata thought about it and said it another way, to be more precise, the original energy has been consumed, leaving only an empty shell. We switched to mice and found that the wall was not harmful to things, and. Sakata paused, pulling at the wall with both hands. The wall started to become thinner and thinner, until it finally became the most common eye protection mode and could no longer be pulled apart. Sakata explained, this is the maximum limit of the support team's experiment. We can clearly see the situation inside. At this moment, a loud noise woke up everyone who was looking surprised. Through the wall's eye protection mode, the violent explosion cut a 20-meter-high building in half. Telescope! Telescope! Sakata yelled to the back, and the members of the support team trotted over to deliver the things, placing them in everyone's hands one by one. Through the telescope, it seems that there are two figures fighting. No, it should be said that one person is being beaten unilaterally. The man in golden armor pressed his belt and turned into the person the Victory team was most familiar with, Fang Ark. Black lightning flashed in Fang Zhou's hand, and he pressed it hard towards the enemy, with the bombardment of lightning mixed with scarlet flames. How miserable! Lena murmured to herself, I'm afraid it will hurt a bit if I get hit by this. Sakata, who heard this, looked at Lena in surprise and opened his mouth to say something, but finally held back. The man who was beaten flew backwards and crashed through residential buildings. His body was wrapped in flames, burning everything in his path, leaving behind a passage full of embers. Boom! Finally, it crashed into the golden wall and finally stopped. Moreover, it happened right in front of the members of the Victory team. At this moment, the members of the Victory team vaguely discovered a truth. The golden wall seemed to be protecting them rather than blocking them, keeping the losses within a controllable range. This why does it look like Ultramantiga? Sharp-eyed Lena pointed at the black giant in front of her and exclaimed. How is that possible? Zinken frowned. Horii said doubtfully, I remember that Ultramantiga's color is not like this, but the face is too similar. Sakata on the side was about to get sick from holding it in, but he couldn't say it, because if he did, the captain would physically cut him into pieces. As the leader of the entire support team except Yak, Sakata has the right to mobilize all surveillance. Even if Daegyu is hiding very well, with the support team's reconnaissance capabilities and resources, there should be no problem finding him. Besides, Daegyu was able to hide until now thanks to the support team. On the other side, the victory team members were having a heated discussion surrounding the dark giant. They all thought the black giant had been defeated. Snap, 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 snap. Yak stepped on the broken stones on the ground, the thick malicious swamp following him like a shadow, the claws from the abyss demanding everything at all times. He looked at the dark giant on the ground and took a fighting stance. Boom! In an instant, the dark giant suddenly counterattacked, and the whistling fist shadow swept up a strong wind, which would have crushed the dark giant into meat paste if it had touched him. But Jack was still at ease. While taking the blows one by one, he could also secretly punch him in the kidneys twice. Chapter 96. Please try harder. You haven't eaten yet. The malice in Yak's hand turned into a huge claw, dragging the dark giant's head across the ground for dozens of meters, and finally throwing it out. Boom! The giant's hammer hit the hood of the car, and the car was scrapped on the spot. Yak tilted his head and said with a joking smile, Is this the power of the dark giant? It's a little too weak. How about you follow me? That being said, Ark knew why he couldn't defeat Dark Tiga. The first is that Daegyu is too weak and cannot exert his full strength. The second is that Daegyu is unwilling to accept this power. He refuses to assimilate relying solely on human will and the light factor in his body. In response, Dark Tiga said, Dude, you are really tough. Damn, monster! Dark Tiga roared at Ark. It was the first time that he, who had returned, was so hostile to a living being. The tyrannical dark factor was spreading wildly, and endless power surged out, once again compressing Daegyu's hidden will. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the scarlet blood moon made everything seem eerie. Crows leaped and flew from the expanding shadow of the dark giant, and their hollow and hoarse cries were a signal of destruction. Dark Tiga recovered from his original tiny size to his original height. Anger and murderous intent nourished him, and the flock of crows of destruction was the extension of his will. The black snow swept across the earth, and the biting cold wind blew people left and right. In an instant, the whole city fell into decay. The snowflakes were dotted with stars, an ominous black color. Jack reached out his hand to catch the unmelting snowflakes, feeling the predatory bite in them. Every living thing that sticks to the snowflakes will become its nourishment, and every covered ground will be forcibly stripped of energy. Overbearing. Arrogant. Cold-blooded. All the synonyms for darkness are once again vividly reflected. Yak looked up at the huge giant. The scarlet moon reflected his majestic and terrifying body. As expected, he is the most outstanding warrior among the dark giants. A mere human can achieve this, but it's a bit disrespectful to think you can defeat me with just this level of skill. At the same time, Yak's voice became majestic, like a dull and majestic bronze bell. Cayman ride. I told you to use only half your strength, and it still works for you. Yak pulled out a card with a blue monster printed on it, Hinkson. Transformation. Godzilla. Boom, boom, boom. In the void, the sound of beating hearts weighed on everyone's mind, including the dark giant. Everyone was shrouded in the feeling of being targeted and hunted, as if a natural enemy had arrived and would tear them to pieces in the next moment. The ground where Yak was standing cracked, and the concrete road that sealed the earth could no longer bear it. Fierce blue light gushed into the sky, and even the golden wall left by the will of the earth was eroded and discolored by this unreasonable energy. Danger! Danger! In Dark Tiga's mind, even if he was not the real body, but just a wisp of dark energy left over, this extremely dangerous aura made him unable to sit still. Without any hesitation, Dark Tiga raised his right hand, and the black and purple energy condensed into a ball of light and threw it towards Yak. Dark palm cutting. Kill him before he completes his transformation. Haha, this technique of sneak attacking others when they transform is useless on me. Yak held the ball of light with one hand, and a blue crystal slowly passed by, revealing a hideous face. With a light throw, followed by a tail swing, it directly cuts the palm and hits it back. In a real sense, Ark should be a Godzilla pretending to be a human, rather than actually becoming a human. This method of sneak attack during transformation is completely useless. The palm of his hand cut towards Dark Tiga's chest. He did not dodge, or perhaps there was no need to dodge. The moment the black and purple light ball touched the surface, it melted and was absorbed like winter snow meeting the summer sunshine. Excellent use of energy. Even Yake couldn't help but praise this move and said, "How about your taijutsu?" After saying that, Yak jumped up and instantly turned into a huge monster of 90 meters. The power in the card is only 50% of Yak's, which is equivalent to his height and weight when he first came into the world. But despite this, Dark Tiga still gives a strong sense of oppression. Dark Tiga is only 53 meters. Godzilla's sharp claws chopped down on his head. His 4 claws were 100 times harder than the hardest metal that humans can synthesize today. But Dark Tiga was not afraid at all. He used energy to cover his arms and solidified them into arm armor, and fought hand to hand with the giant beast that was almost half his height. Dark Tiga blocked it with one hand, allowing the sharp claws to penetrate his defense and pierce his arm. He held his breath, concentrated his strength, and used his other hand to smash Godzilla's head hard. Boom! Black flames burned on Jack's head, choking him and making him sneeze. This was the first time he felt pressure from the bottom of his heart. The warlike factor in Jack's body was aroused, and under his blue pupils, the surging fighting spirit turned into colorful spears of light. Spiral Ballad. With a single hand, the dazzling spear of light shot towards Dark Tiga at lightning speed, with a ferocious posture, as if to pierce him directly through the shoulder. But Dark Tiga was no pushover and left without any hesitation. The light spears were nailed into the ground, and the surging energy auras flattened everything nearby, just like throwing a stone into a pond to create ripples. In the eyes of the tiny humans on the ground, these auras were like huge waves 5 or 6 meters high, swallowing up everything. The jumping dark giant did not land immediately, but stayed in the air, throwing dark palm cuts at Jack's face as if they were free. This scene is very similar to Daegyu throwing palm light arrows. If Daegyu is a Gatling gun, Dark Tiga is a missile launch group. There is a world of difference in both power and caliber. Under the heavy bombardment, Godzilla had to raise his arms to block, and it was still a bit difficult to fight Dark Tiga with half of his strength. "Do you think there's nothing I can do about it?" Yak's cold pupils were fixed on the Dark Tiga in the sky. There was also a guy flying in the sky before, but later his wings were cut off and he died under Yak's breath. Yak took a deep breath, and the fin on his back burst into a dazzling blue light, causing the nearby sand and stones to wriggle restlessly due to the fluctuations. Back cutting, start. The no longer restrained energy turned into dozens of rays, and under Yak's wanton squandering, even some weak points of the golden wall could not withstand it. Dark Tiga dodged in the sky, and in a trance, a ray of light shot out, followed by the second, third, and fourth rays. The scorching heat corroded Dark Tiga's body, and a big hole was stabbed in his abdomen. No blood flowed out, only black dark factors continued to dissipate and condense, trying to repair the wound. Chapter 97. Boom! In downtown Tokyo, a figure fell heavily to the ground. A towering figure slowly rose from the smoke. The dark giant covered his wound with his hands, emitting a thin black mist, trying to use the black mist to repair the wound. "Is that all you can do? It seems that the dark giant is just so-so. You might as well let Daegu come out. Maybe fighting him will be more interesting." Yak laughed mockingly, and his ferocious face looked even more terrifying. But secretly, Yak was also wondering if he had enough energy. "I said from the beginning that I would use half of my strength, so I only used the night card to transform. But Daegyu's thing is really hard. If he suddenly becomes unreasonable and I beat him with 100% of my strength, it will be so embarrassing if the news gets out. He, Godzilla, is the most trustworthy." On the other side, the dark giant's wounds were slowly recovering under the healing of the black fog. Yes, slowly, extremely slowly. Godzilla's energy is attached to it, corroding him all the time. The biggest function of the black fog is to help him relieve the pain. The dark giant simply retracted the black mist and stopped wasting energy. He raised his head and stared at the giant beast in front of him. He doesn't have much energy left. Just like that, the two of them looked at each other without moving, but the oppressive atmosphere made them dare not relax. After a few breaths, Dark Tiga finally couldn't bear it anymore. With his hands crossed, dark energy gathered, and the dangerous aura doubled in the dark purple light. Yak also felt it, opened his mouth slightly, and the dorsal fin on his back surged like a tide, and brilliant nuclear energy was mobilized from his huge body. Boom! 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 The two huge monsters are like two planets that constantly emit gravity. Trees, cars, concrete, and steel bars are attracted by these two energies, forming a hurricane. Dark Tiga's outstretched arms suddenly crossed Dark Zapirian Ray. Godzilla is no less impressive, he opens his mouth and spits out atomic breath. Boom! Two energies that were powerful enough to destroy an entire city collided with each other. The energies, which were already corrosive, devoured and annihilated each other. A blue-purple ball of light formed between the two. Godzilla squeezed every bit of energy in his cells to supply the output of his atomic breath. The torrent that erupted in an instant surged and slowly pushed towards Dark Tiga. This time, Dark Tiga became anxious. Although he cannot be considered a real soul, he at least has intelligence. He clearly understands that if he gets hit like this, it would probably be a bit painful. He simply ignored it and gritted his teeth to continue increasing the output of the Dark Zapirian Ray, trying to push the energy ball back. The confrontation lasted for 7 full breaths. The energy ball grew bigger and bigger with the supply from both sides, but Godzilla and Dark Tiga were evenly matched and neither could push it. Finally, both sides stopped at the same time. Not enough energy. On this day, Yake felt that his body was hollowed out. The feeling of emptiness was really regretful. If he hadn't been so pretentious, he would have pinned Daegyo to the ground and beaten him. Dark Tiga was not much better off. He knelt weakly on one knee, supporting himself on the ground with one hand to prevent himself from falling. Now that both of us have no strength left, are we safe for the time being? The answer is wrong. Let me ask you, when two different energies collide with each other, a balanced energy ball is temporarily formed because of the continuous supply. What will happen if there is no energy supply? It will explode. The energy ball between the two began to tremble violently, and a flare like the sun suddenly erupted, lashing out everything around it. Damn, it's over. Yak cursed inwardly and dragged his tired body to leave. Suddenly, a hand grabbed his thigh and pulled him tightly. Yak took a glance and was stunned. Damn, Dark Tiga. This guy pounced on me, grabbed me, and wouldn't let me leave, launching a sneak attack. The mockery in the dark giant's eyes was almost overflowing. Hey, little guy, it's finally my turn to mock you. Anyway, I am just a remnant soul, and I am still using Daegyo's body. If I die this time, I can just continue next time. I'm really mad. Jack tried to pull his legs away, but Dark Tiga was like a dogskin plaster, holding him tightly and not letting him go. Finally, the energy ball exploded. The energy that rushed into the sky formed a semicircular explosion zone. The dazzling white light enveloped the two of them. Everything affected was torn apart in an instant. The scorching wind and the annihilating energy devoured everything wantonly. Even the golden wall left by the Earth's will was weakened and on the verge of crumbling, but fortunately it was not at the center of the explosion, so it was barely able to block it. Outside the golden wall, everyone was stunned by the scene. They had no way to break through the golden wall and could only watch everything happen. Lena slumped down on the ground, muttering to herself, Daegyo. Daegyo. Daigu's last signal was in Tokyo. In such a horrific explosion, if there was an accident, Lena couldn't even imagine it. Deputy Captain Sakata, who had sharp hearing, glanced at the distraught Lena, and the corners of his mouth twitched involuntarily. Even if the whole Tokyo was bombed, Daegu would not die, and he would only have to lie in bed for 2 months at most. But he couldn't say this, or the captain would tear him to pieces. Oh, it's so hard to keep a secret. Tokyo battlefield. Several helicopters were hovering above the Golden Wall, and a camera was sticking out of each helicopter. From the beginning, the battle between Godzilla and Dark Tiga was broadcast. The explosion finally subsided, and what appeared before the eyes of the world was a huge pit. Half of Tokyo was flattened in the explosion. No, it was turned into a crater. Everyone, what we are seeing now is the battlefield where Godzilla and the unknown giant are fighting. As you can see, half of Tokyo has been destroyed, and then, wait, what is that? The reporter was slightly stunned. There seems to be something glowing there. In the explosion pit, a black object flashed blue light, and the solidified black glass slowly cracked. Finally, a sharp claw broke out of the shell. It was Godzilla. It's really explosive. Fortunately, I'm lucky. Jack stood up with a grin on his face. His dorsal fin was broken and cracked. If he hadn't been lucky, he would have been paralyzed on one side. Thinking of this, Yak kicked the Dark Tiga who was also blown up and wrapped in glass next to him. Dark Tiga didn't die either, so we can only say that Daegu is really tough. Haha, Godzilla, you are not dead, but remember this, you won't be so lucky next time. A cold voice suddenly came from Yak's head. Yak tilted his head, so you are not mute. You. Dark Tiga gritted his teeth, but could do nothing. Besides, why do you think there will be a next time? Yak smiled coldly. What do you mean? Under Dark Tiga's puzzled gaze, Godzilla turned into a spot of light and dissipated, then turned back into a machine and fell on Tiga's crystal timer. Bang bang! Yak tapped the timer. Hello, did Comrade Daegu sleep well? Daegu, who was trapped inside, was speechless. Don't worry, I'll let you out right away. As Yak spoke, he took out the same bronze version of the magic stick as Daegu, and slowly approached the crystal timer. At this moment, Dark Tiga felt an unprecedented suction force, and an ominous feeling arose spontaneously. What do you want to do? Yak smiled happily. Dark Tiga, we will definitely get along very happily. No no no. Amidst the heart-wrenching roar of Dark Tiga, a ray of black energy was absorbed into the bronze divine light rod. Being extremely exhausted, he had no power to resist at all. The bronze color on the magic stick faded, revealing a black outer layer. Haha, this is really interesting. Yak looked at Daegu who slowly turned into a point of light and floated towards the city, and waved goodbye with a smile. He didn't care at all and was yelling at the dark soul who was cursing at him. Chapter 98. It's an interesting day, don't you think, remnant soul? Yak stood on a dilapidated building, looking at the setting sun. The dusk shone on the devastated city, and the huge pits seemed bottomless in the shadows. You damned bastard, you will be punished. The dark light rod flashed with light, communicating with Yak using his mind. I hope your wish comes true. Now we have to get to work. Yak didn't care about what the remnant soul said and raised his hand and snapped his fingers. A golden vortex opened up in front of Yak. The time tunnel opened. Hey, what are you doing? The remnant soul's tone was a little trembling. It felt the magnificent momentum in it. The power was so brilliant that it was even stronger than its original body. Of course it's traveling. Yak said as a matter of course, with one foot already stepped in. No. Let me out. The remnant soul was completely panicked. It could feel that after Jack put one foot in, the breath of Jack's limbs disappeared instantly. You damned bandit, let me go. Don't want. With a heart-wrenching wail, Jack left this world, pulling the dark light stick. The remnant soul also felt that the connection between himself and his original body, which was so weak that it was almost imperceptible, was completely severed. The world of Gaia. Thousands of meters in the sky, the golden vortex door opened. An armored figure emerged from it and fell to the ground at a high speed. Oh, damn Earth will, I will kick your ass hard when I get back. After putting on the mask, Jack's face darkened. No wonder the system hung him on the tree at the beginning. It turned out that they were of the same lineage. The whistling sound of the wind was very loud in his ears, and there was a vast ocean right below him. Jack looked up and saw a small county town nearby. Right there. Having made up his mind, Jack adjusted his position, put his hands and feet together, and accelerated his speed of falling into the ocean. Boom! It splashed like a stone hitting the water, and then swam towards the shore. Phew, this swimming is pretty smooth. Jack stretched lazily, walked ashore step by step on the tide, and finally sat on the reef. Damn it, damn it, damn it! Yak, you shameless fellow, let me out. I want to see the deity and report you to me. The remnant soul's furious roar kept ringing in its ears, and it seemed that leaving the world of Tiga had caused it to panic. But Yak didn't care. He even used his thumb to pick his ears, as if using body language to tell it you are very noisy. To be honest, you ancient people have a very limited vocabulary. You keep repeating the same few sentences over and over again. There is nothing new to say. Yak glanced at the magic stick in his hand with disdain. Besides, do you still want to see me? You can't see it because you are not qualified. Jack didn't utter a single curse word, but the remnant soul was so angry that its teeth were itching, and it wished it could jump out and bite Jack to death. After poking the remnant soul in the heart, Yak immediately called the dog system. Hey, come out and tell me what this place is and where the will of the earth is. Why don't you come out and see me? According to the information provided, this is the Gaia world. Gaia's earth will is too weak because it was just born, and has fallen into a deep sleep. Well, that's a little baby that's more than 4 billion years old. But why does the name Gaia sound so familiar? Yak supported his head and thought, and suddenly a name appeared in his mind. Earth Destroyer Ultraman Gaia Jason Gamu. Hiss. When it comes to the plot of Ultraman Tiga, Yak can still remember a little bit, but the plot of Ultraman Gaia can be said to be completely dark. If you really count it, Jack is still a kid in his 50s, well, that's reasonable. Oh, what's going on? Yak fell into a vicious circle again. The money from the original world of Tiga could not be used here, and he could not carry precious metals such as gold and silver with him. Plus I'm not familiar with the place. In short, the financial situation is not good enough, the actors have not been decided, and there is no script yet. Mad, absolutely. JPG. After worrying for a while, Yak simply stopped thinking about it and went to the county town to see if he could find any clues. If he was lucky, he might even find a long-term meal ticket. Well, after all, she is a naive and innocent girl with a divorced mother. He took off his belt and walked towards the county town humming a little tune. Walking into the town, the fishery here is very rich due to its proximity to the coast. The little girls jumping on the roadside stared at Jack's face and his strong arms. The sea breeze blew along the street, and the faintly visible abdominal muscles under the thin shirt caused a blush. Yak was not idle either, he stepped forward and asked, "Hello, may I ask where is this place?" The unknown handsome guy talked to them, and the three girls shivered all over. They pushed one of the girls out and said, This is a small town in Chiba Prefecture." Chiba Prefecture. Yak nodded. In the shop next door, the news was playing on TV. A line of eye-catching large characters indicated that a monster was approaching Chiba from the ocean, and asked nearby residents to take shelter quickly. Ocean? I can't feel the monster's magnetic field. Yak silently sensed the ocean 100 meters away, and then... Ocean denies access? What are you talking about? Do you know who I am? Why are you rejecting me? The Yak people are numb, the will of the earth is asleep, and all kinds of monsters are trying to grab authority. Tisk, trouble. Jack is confused about the current situation, but it's not a big problem. He just needs to deal with the monster first. Thank you very much. You can go to take shelter first. Yak smiled and said hello, pointed to the news on the store's TV, and left quickly. Wait, I want to add you. Before the girl could finish her words, the handsome guy disappeared. Yak's figure kept flashing, looking a bit like magic, but in fact it was too fast for the human eye to keep up. Pat. Jack tapped his toes on the rock. He saw a huge monster in the distance. The monster's arms are two huge pincers, and it has a dorsal fin similar to Godzilla's on its back. The layers of skin on its huge legs flutter like kelp, and it exudes white gas. The sea monster, Bokulagu, appears. After Bokulagu landed, fighter jets in the sky also arrived at the battlefield and launched an attack on the monster. The lasers from the fighter jets bombarded Bokuragu, but only for a moment before they all dissipated without causing any damage. Jack looked at this scene and saw that the moment the laser touched the monster's skin, the white smoke absorbed all the heat energy and neutralized it. This should be the defense team of Gaia World. Then our little Ultraman friend should also appear. Note, I have too many things to do recently. I usually have classes until 10 p.m., and do experiments until 11 p.m. on weekends. I am very sorry for the interruption. Sorry.jpg. Chapter 99. Wow! The surging tide hits the rocks, and the ocean shows its surging vitality in the form of waves. There seems to be something vague in the rhythm. Kidada, collect the mist that the monster sprays out and make a sample. Not far away, Gao Shanwiming turned on something similar to a watch on his hand and used it to contact his teammates who were fighting. Okay. An SG lowered its flying altitude and flew through the monster's legs, collecting the white mist in it. At the XIG base, Atsuko Sasaki quickly began to analyze. My dream, the white mist is water containing calcium chloride, it is harmless. Imeng immediately concluded, the mass of that monster is almost made of seawater, and its body temperature is not very high, so the scanner cannot scan it. Not far from the mountain of my dream, Yak quietly drinks tea against the rock wall, listening to the waves and the chattering of the remaining souls. It is a unique experience. Hey, Ken-hun, have you seen those humans over there? Yak interrupted Kenhun's complaints and pointed at the high mountain Wiming not far away. Tisk, he's just a human being, what's wrong with that? The remnant soul took a glance at my dream and immediately found something wrong. There was such a bright red light. It tastes like a giant. The remnant soul widened its eyes, wishing it could rush out of the magic stick. If it could control the giant's body again, it would definitely not lose to the shameless guy Jack. The last failure was purely due to its underestimation of the enemy. Well, it was definitely not a weakling. Hey, what are you doing here? Go to shelter quickly. When the remnant soul was still thinking about how to escape, a cold voice came from the side. A man looked at them with a stern expression. The slightly salty sea breeze blew the man's long hair. Oh shit! Another giant! The remnant soul was going crazy inside the magic stick, wishing he could smash the damn dark magic stick. Blue, it's blue light. Yake was enjoying his afternoon tea and said nonchalantly, this is a great place. You can also enjoy a panoramic view of the battle scene. You aren't afraid? Fujimiya Hiroya was a little surprised. Why should I be afraid? Yake asked back. Fujimiya was unable to react for a moment. How could a human being not be afraid of a monster? No, where did he get the camera from? Under the nose of Fujimiya Hiroya, Ark took out his camera and took a picture of the monster. Travel points, 150 points. Yake happily put the photos away and caught a glimpse of Fujimiya's expression from the corner of his eye. As a tourist, it's reasonable to take some photos as a souvenir. Fujimiya left without saying anything else. He didn't want to waste too much time. However, Yake showed great interest in them. 1 Earth, 2 Ultraman, isn't this a betrayal of the will of the Earth? Yak stepped on the shadows under the rocks and followed Fujimiya silently. This skill required a high level of control over energy and breath. Even Fujimiya Hiroya, who was always sensitive, didn't notice anything unusual. When Fujimiya stopped, Ake also heard my dream mumbling. It only takes a powerful burst of heat to vaporize him, but then the whole town will be destroyed. It seems that I am the only one who can take action. Wow! Just when I was about to take out the blue light cone, I suddenly heard the sound of surging waves. The ordinary waves immediately made me alert and I turned my head to look. A man was looking up at the monster at a 45-degree angle. After noticing my gaze, he turned his eyes to me. It was a scrutinizing, serious look. The man stretched out his hand, revealing something like a bracelet on his wrist. Energy surged, the blue crystal in the middle kept flashing, and the folded objects on both sides unfolded like wings. Just when he was about to transform, a teasing voice sounded from the side, "Hey, what a good thing, lend it to me to play with." Immediately, a big hand reached out and intercepted the energy that was about to burst out, holding it tightly in its hand. So fast! In the blink of an eye, the transformation device on his wrist disappeared. Fujimiya looked in the direction and saw that it was the man from before. "Who are you?" Fujimiya became alert, "Give my things back to me now." He also discovered that there was something wrong with the man in front of him. His human aura was so weak that it was undetectable. No hurry, lend it to me and have a look." Jack dodged casually without even looking at Fujimiya, and took a few steps back and jumped more than 10 meters away. This is definitely not the physical fitness that a human being should have. Alien? Fujimiya frowned, and Iman hadn't yet reacted to what was happening. Jack looked at the transformation device in his hand. The blue energy that was about to burst out was forcibly bent back. Such pure earth energy! Yak was secretly amazed. This was not an alien like Tiga, but a product of the manifestation of the Earth's will in this world. But, why is it so simple? Just the smell of the ocean. In an instant, Jack recalled that the fight mentioned in the letter might not be this. Moreover, this couldn't be the reason why I was denied access to the ocean. Wardfa, has Gaia's world will left me a backdoor or something? Yak is scratching his head now. Why not try it for a while? Maybe it will be useful. As soon as the thought came to his mind, Yak pressed the bracelet directly to his wrist. Click! Perfect fit! Yak closed his eyes and began to communicate with the energy in the crystals, trying to mobilize them for his own use. This action was seen by Fujimiya and Kamen. Teng Gong folded his arms and smiled coldly, he was waiting to see the joke. I am the one chosen by the will of the ocean, and no one else can do it except me. No. Why is the sapphire bracelet glowing, and how did the ocean will respond to him? On the other side, Yak was immersed in the sapphire bracelet. First search, access failed. Second search, access, the highest authority is interfering. Access successful. The second time, a golden wool violently knocked away the authority of the crystal stone, allowing Yak to take control. Yak opened his eyes and finally succeeded. The wings of the sapphire bracelet spread out, and a surging blue torrent rose. At this moment, Yak turned into light. Boom! The blue light fell on the ground, and behind the raised dust, a blue giant was seen half crouching on the ground, with his hands crossed to protect his lowered head. Ultraman Aga is here. Yes, yes, that Ultraman. I dreamed with my eyes wide open. Why can he? The smile on Fujimiya's face froze, and for a moment he began to doubt his life. What happened to the saying that I am the embodiment of the will of the ocean? Is this the legendary NTR? That's not right, I was here first. Chapter 100. XIG Headquarters. Atsuko looked at the giant on the monitor and muttered to herself, that's not Gaia. Is there more than one Ultraman? As the commander of XIG, Ishimuro Akio's insight immediately made him think of different aspects. Chiba Prefecture. Everyone could clearly hear the sound of the waves surging in their ears. The sound of a tsunami that was enough to drown the entire Japan collided in their minds, and it seemed as if endless lives were swimming in it. What is going on? Fujimiya pinched his arm secretly, and the clear pain made him know that he was not dreaming. Why can he use his sapphire bracelet? How did the ocean will respond to him? Yak, who turned into a guru, stood up and stretched his body freely. Ultraman, who represents the ocean, is indeed good, but he is still a little bit inferior to Godzilla. Well, the only thing missing is 3 darkened versions of Daigu. The sudden appearance of the giant instantly enveloped Pokuragu in a strong sense of death, a feeling that was far more cold-blooded and ruthless than Fujimiya's. Just like the undercurrent in the deep sea, it is filled with murderous intent and tyranny. Yak jumped lightly, turned in the sky and landed in front of Pokuragu. His huge body fell to the ground but did not cause much damage to the ground. This is the absolute control of power and the brilliance of energy operation. Hiss, roar, roar. Pokuragu roared, and the white mist on his body became thicker, as if warning the giant in front of him not to come closer. But this level of bluffing obviously has no effect at all. Yak looked around the monster, strolling leisurely, obviously not taking Bokulak seriously. Weak, too weak. Yak raised his arms in front of his chest, and recalling what Daegyu had done before, he gathered the energy in his palms and swung them forward. A blue crescent of light shot out. A guru cut. Boom. The huge impact force and explosion exploded in the monster's chest. The white mist floating nearby had no effect at all, and Bokulagu was swept backwards by the impact force, crushing a factory in a large tract of forest before finally stopping. Hiss, hiss, hiss. In the rising smoke, Bokulagu stood up. After being bombarded by a light bomb, a large area of skin on his chest was burned, revealing his red tendons. It hurts too much. This feeling is like tearing your skin bit by bit. Bokulagu's already small eyes turned blood red in an instant, and he raised 2 huge pincers and rushed towards Yak. Jack didn't even try to dodge, he just stood there and watched the 2 clamps locking around his throat. In an instant, a huge electric current was released from the monster's arms and pierced into Ultraman's body. Even a small electric current can burn a tree to ashes in an instant. Oh no, that monster's attack is so fierce. On the ground, I saw it all and became nervous. I glanced at Fujimiya who was still in a daze behind me. He was the one who took out the transformation device, so it must be related to Ultraman. Without hesitation, he took out the sapphire cone and yelled, Gaia! In the sky, a huge red giant appeared out of nowhere, and its huge body slammed heavily to the ground. In an instant, the trees on the ground were shattered by this tremendous force. The power from the earth was thick and deep. Of course, compared with the previous time when Yak fought a bass, the damage caused by landing still needs to be improved. After landing, Gaia did not stay for long and rushed towards the imprisoned Ultraman Aguru. Oh, it's too weak. Can't you increase the power? On the other hand, Yak, who was given the electric shock, was completely fine, and even felt quite comfortable, just like a massage. No way, there really couldn't be someone being clamped by Bogulak and being unable to move due to the electrotherapy. Forget it, you'd better get out of the way. Jack shook his head, and the blue energy on his arm dropped, gradually forming a long sword blade. But in terms of color, perhaps because of Jack himself, the blue of the blade has turned black. Swish! There was a flash of blue light. The sword was so fast that there was no shadow. Bokulagu's arm gradually lost control and fell helplessly to the ground. In just one hit, even the monster's super strong recovery was useless and it was cut off directly. Clap! There was another loud noise, as if something was hit. Jack turned his head and saw that it was Gaia who had just rushed towards him. He happened to be within the attack range of the sword and was knocked down directly. Ah, this! The corner of Jack's mouth twitched. Do you think you can blame me for this? The ocean will refused his visit, and he was able to successfully enter only after obtaining the transformer. The same goes for the will of the earth. Without authority, he really didn't notice Gaia approaching. Fortunately, Gaia was tough and flew away after being hit. If it was a more fragile creature, he would have been eaten on the spot. Boom! Ultraman Gaia crashed into the hill, and the originally lush forest turned into a pile of broken earth. Ding dong! Ding dong! The timer on Gaia's chest lit up red. Tisk, so fragile. If it was Dagu, he could at least withstand 2.5 swords. Yake shook his head and said, I'm sorry, brother. I'll treat you to a meal next time. He turned his head and looked at the monster that had not been dealt with yet. Bokulagu's recovery ability is very strong. Even if his arm is cut off, it can grow back instantly. But now it is facing Yak, not Fujimiya. Ark's blade is more aggressive, which inhibits the monster's recovery to a certain extent. Come on, let's finish. Yak spread out his hands, and a powerful force jumped between his palms, flowing and condensing photon energy to create a blue destructive light ball. Reckoner! The ball of light hit the monster's head, and instantly deep blue energy filled the entire space. The turbulence from the deep sea crushed everything around it. In just a breath, Bokulagu was torn to pieces. Woohoo! Completed! Under the astonished gazes of Ultraman Gaia and Fujimiya, Ark turned and left. At this moment, the surging tides on the coast calmed down and naturally separated. After a gull's huge body sank into it, they slowly reunited. In a dark room, a man in a vest was sweating profusely, his sharply defined muscles undulating, his cheeks and hair soaked with sweat. Even though his whole body was shaking violently from the panting he was doing, he still refused to stop. Yes, you guessed it, he's working out. Damn guy! Fujimiya lifted the dumbbells and exercised again and again, but he couldn't calm down. That playful face lingered in his mind. Hey, little bro, so you live here? In the single room, a familiar voice came into Fujimiya's ears. A familiar figure appeared in front of Fujimiya, making him grit his teeth. Chapter 101. Who are you and what do you want to do? Fujimiya suppressed his inner anger, his clenched fists trembling slightly, as if he would burst into battle at any time. Haha! A playful smile appeared on Jack's lips. He leaned against the wall leisurely, casually peeled off a piece of newspaper, and glanced at it casually. He looked at Fujimiya with a half-smile and said, the report on Ultraman Gaia. It seems that you are paying close attention to him. Hearing this, Fujimiya's face darkened and he responded coldly, he and I are not the same kind of people. There was a hint of disdain in his words. It doesn't matter. No one will really care about these things anyway, except for a guy sleeping soundly in the center of the earth. Jack shrugged indifferently, then took something out of his arms and threw it to Fujimiya like throwing away garbage. Sapphire bracelet. Fujimiya's heart was shocked. He quickly reached out to catch it and examined it carefully. After a careful inspection, it was confirmed that the sapphire bracelet had not suffered any damage and was still intact. Even the blue crystal in the center was brighter than before. However, at this moment, Fujimiya's heart was full of doubts and confusion. He really couldn't understand why the other party would return the things to him. Just as he was frowning and puzzled, Yake had a matter-of-fact look on his face. I'm not too interested in your power, Aguru. What do you mean? Fujimiya's face suddenly turned gloomy, as if water could drip out of it. It is really unbearable to feel that something you treasure is despised by others. Transform, Ultraman Aguru. Fight me. Yake opened his arms and shouted loudly. His deep black pupils revealed his extreme contempt and disdain for Fujimiya. I refuse. Fujimiya replied coldly, and his expression became more and more indifferent. This is my home. If you destroy it, who will compensate for the damage? He was not stupid. Fujimiya knew very well that once he took action, it would inevitably lead to a fierce battle. That's right. Yake took a light step forward and appeared in front of Fujimiya in an instant. Without any unnecessary movements, he pushed Fujimiya's chest with his arm and fell backwards. At the moment when he was about to fall to the ground, a golden space door opened. In the blink of an eye, the two appeared 500 meters above the ocean. Although this level of consumption would require crystals, it was generally not much and was acceptable. What kind of power is this? Fujimiya felt the whistling sound of the wind in his ears and was so shocked that he couldn't speak for a moment. Next to him, Yak was sleeping in mid-air in a lying position. Hey, stop being dazed. We are 500 meters in the air now. There is no difference between falling on the sea and falling on the concrete floor. Without the transformation, you are just an ordinary human being. Not everyone is like Daigu. If Fujimiya falls down, he will turn into Fujimiya-chan. Hengzhen. Decade. Under Fujimiya's surprised gaze, mysterious and illusory phantoms began to flicker and appear beside Jack. These phantoms seemed to have life, interweaving and merging with each other, and finally converging into an indestructible armor that tightly covered Yak's body. Suddenly, there was a dull thunder-like sound boom. With this loud noise, Yak fell rapidly like a meteorite, smashing heavily into the rough sea. In an instant, the huge impact force caused the surrounding sea water to roll violently, forming a huge wave 5 or 6 meters high. However, surprisingly, despite such a violent impact, Jack did not sink to the bottom of the sea. On the contrary, he stood firmly on the undulating sea surface, as if his feet had taken root and were as solid as a rock. On the other hand, Fujimiya, no. It should be Ultraman posture of entering water is much inferior. It slammed straight on the sea surface, and when he floated to the surface, his man-sized figure appeared. The miniaturized Ultraman. This technique is also a kind of application of energy. Fujimiya can control it accurately through his own training without anyone teaching him, so he must have a good talent. The two faced off, and Aguru took a fighting stance, but Fujimiya still couldn't help but ask, "Who are you and what is your purpose?" "I'm just a caiman rider passing by." Yake used force on his toes at the same time and jumped lightly on the sea surface, as if he was warming up. "As for the purpose, I will tell you after the fight." As soon as he finished speaking, Yak's figure disappeared from the spot like a ghost. In an instant, he appeared in front of Aguru as if teleporting, and the movement of his legs raised high was obviously the whip kick that Aguru was very familiar with. In response to this, Dagu said, "The captain's whip kick is fun, but it's a little painful." Fujimiya was obviously caught off guard by such a fast speed and was kicked flying away. If it weren't for Aguru being strong enough and the fact that they were still in the ocean's home court. "This kick is about to begin. Fujimiya Hiroya, open your eyes, I am Aguru." At this moment, Fujimiya felt dizzy, like a stone skipping on the water, hitting the surface of the sea, bouncing up and falling down. But Fujimiya was no pushover. He immediately straightened his body, grabbed the sea surface with both palms and stayed firmly in place. But Yak's figure disappeared again. Where could he be? Fujimiya observed the surrounding environment with full concentration, not daring to relax for a moment. At this moment, a strong signal came from the depths of the ocean. Something was approaching him at an alarming speed. Not good. Fujimiya's heart tightened, realizing that he might be attacked. In the blink of an eye, a figure emerged from the water like a dragon. Holding a long sword that shone with cold light in all directions, Jack stabbed straight at Fujimiya's forehead. His movements were swift and fierce, with undisguised murderous intent. However, Fujimiya, who had been prepared, did not panic. He quickly conjured up an extremely sharp blue sword and accurately blocked Jack's fatal blow. Instantly, sparks flew, the sound of metal colliding was deafening, and a dazzling light burst out from where the swords intersected. "It seems you still have some skills," Yake said with some surprise. Fujimiya steadied his body, the sword in his hand flashing blue light. He stared at Yak without fear. "So what should you do next?" Yak's mouth corners slightly raised, revealing a playful smile. The long sword in his hand danced as fast as lightning, and every time he swung the sword, it brought up a string of sharp sword lights, as if a bunch of blooming pear blossoms were flying in the air. These sword lights intertwined densely, forming an impenetrable sword net that tightly enveloped Fujimiya. Faced with such a fierce attack, Fujimiya couldn't help but feel the pressure doubled. He swung his weapon with all his might, trying to block Jack's attack, but the opponent's moves were too insidious and every move hit vital parts. Throat, forehead, heart, genitals. Finally, when Ark's sword pointed at Fujimiya's throat again, he seized the opportunity, swung his weapon hard, and shouted, "Get out of my way!" With this roar, a powerful force burst out from Fujimiya's body, forcefully repelling Jack's attack. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Fujimiya retreated quickly, keeping a distance from Yakla. He crossed his hands and placed them on the energy crystal on his forehead, concentrating and starting to condense energy. Gradually, the surrounding sea water began to roll violently, and countless blue lights rose from the sea, like dazzling sapphires. These blue lights converged and merged, eventually forming a huge energy vortex, and in the center of the vortex was the energy crystal on Fujimiya's forehead. Photon-crushing attack. The energy crystal suddenly burst out with dazzling light, and then a thick blue beam of light shot out from the energy vortex, slamming towards Yak with devastating power. Chapter 102. A dazzling blue beam of light fell from mid-air, like a giant blue dragon, rushing towards the sea with unparalleled power. The gem-like dazzling light seemed to hide endless murderous intent, which made people shudder. Anyone who gets close to the blue beam of light will immediately feel an indescribable hot breath coming towards them. The heat wave was like the fire of purgatory, instantly igniting the surrounding air. Once touched, even the soul would be burned to ashes in an instant. Boom! Waves of fire surged on the sea surface. The huge explosion created huge waves that were more than 10 meters high. The hole formed in the middle was not filled with sea water again until several breaths later. Fujimiya was suspended in mid-air, looking around below, and was relieved when he saw no one. This should be all right now. Thump thump. The sound of rapid and crisp knocks on the glass came from my chest. Fujimiya's body froze, and he slowly looked down like a puppet. A man in armor was bending over, tapping the crystal timer on his chest with one hand, as if he was looking at something. What the hell? Fujimiya retreated dozens of meters and distanced himself from him. Why are you not hurt at all? My ultimate move has no effect at all, this is unscientific. Oh, little brother, you are too naive. Yake waved his hand and said as a matter of course, he just dodged it with a random jump. You don't think that as long as you use your ultimate, the opponent will definitely take it, right? Also, your energy reserves are too little. The red light appeared after just one shot. If you are good at cooking, practice more. After a lecture, Fujimiya's face in Aguru's body changed from yellow to red and then to black, all in a riot of color. In that case, today's special training ends here. Jack stretched and disappeared in an instant. On the contrary, Fujimiya was a little confused when he heard the word special training. Whose special training is one-sided and beaten? Whose special training would be so violent? If I hadn't trained for years, I would have been kicked through the defense long ago. Who else could have persisted for a long time? A masochist? All kinds of thoughts flashed through my mind, but the next moment, Yak's big face rushed in front of me, and his palm covered the crystal timer on his chest. Fujimiya was confused. Suddenly, Fujimiya felt that all the strength in his body was being sucked away by this palm, pulling out every cell bit by bit. The ocean energy happily left him and rushed towards Yak, as if it had originally belonged to him. In an instant, Fujimiya completely turned into a human form, and was held by the collar by Yak, with the condensed blue light bracelet quietly floating in his palm. My name is Fujimiya, an Ultra Warrior from Earth. I have helped Ultraman Gaia successfully defeat monsters, and I have also accepted the fate of the ocean's will to protect the Earth. Now I am captured, I am 50. The man in front of me, named Yak, was enjoying his dinner, which was really intolerable. So, Fujimiya endured it. Come on, brother, there's no way I could win. I was pinned down on the sea and beaten up without any ability to fight back. After finishing the last bit of beef, Yake wiped the corner of his mouth with a tissue. Fujimiya, don't look at me like that, I won't eat your beef for nothing. Here, this is for you. As soon as he finished speaking, Fujimiya felt his hand sink, and a crystal clear glass syringe appeared in his hand. It also had words written on it, Human Enhancer, shelf life 2 years, please store in a cool place. Is this thing really not sugar water? What will happen if it is out of the expiration date? Fujimiya looked puzzled, looking at the teacup that Jack took out from somewhere, leaning on the chair and drinking tea leisurely. Yake said confidently, come on, you are stereotyping, what sugar water, this is called Human Enhancer. As for the expiration date, it's spoiled, what else can we do? It's just sugar water. Human Enhancers. Okay. Finally, Fujimiya was defeated. Half believing and half doubting, Fujimiya twisted off the bottle cap and gently pressed it on his chest. The liquid in the glass tube automatically dropped and injected into his body. Hiss! Fujimiya took a breath of cold air, not because of the pain, but because it was too cold. But soon, the effect of the medicine took effect. Fujimiya closed his eyes tightly, his body trembling slightly, as if controlled by an invisible force. As the drug took effect, his breathing became rapid, and a strange blush appeared on his face. His eyes were filled with confusion and emptiness, as if he had lost touch with reality. Fujimiya's expression became distorted, and an intense pain spread from his bone marrow, as if someone had crushed his bones and thrown them into a furnace for forging. But relying on his willpower, Fujimiya managed to hold on to the table to prevent himself from falling. Oh my god, Fujimiya, you are quite cruel. Yak looked at him in admiration. Before, when Dagu was beaten, he couldn't bear it and would scream a few times, but Fujimiya in front of him didn't say a word. He is cruel enough, but also quite stupid. Dagu has the genes of an ancient warrior, just like a piece of ore that has not yet been smelted and forged. After being struck and forged by the yak hammer, it becomes a real weapon. This is called talent, a gift that you are born with. This is also the reason why Fujimiya is not as good as Dagu by nature, but one difference is that Fujimiya has a much stronger willpower than Dagu, is ruthless enough to himself, has his own goals, and is not too confused. What Yak brought him was a stronger physique, a body more friendly to the will of the ocean, and a will to constantly improve himself. This is the new sword. After a long time, Fujimiya, who was leaning on the table, finally completed his evolution. Yakkei came forward cheerfully and said, Fujimiya-san, the operation was successful. You have become a girl. How do you feel? What girl? Fujimiya first looked down at his lower body, then he immediately realized that Jack was fooling him. In just 1 second, Fujimiya's confused eyes became sharp, and his sweaty face became cold again. It feels good to evolve. Fujimiya replied coldly. Oh, you're quite arrogant. Jack's eyes lit up, as if he had discovered something new. I didn't. Fujimiya almost failed. I understand everything. Yake spread his hands to show that he understood, and then pointed to the second bedroom next to him. Today's mission ends here. From now on, I will live with you. I hope we can get along well, Fujimiya-san. Fujimiya agreed without saying anything and looked at the barbell beside him. He wanted to see how strong he would be after the breakthrough. Chapter 103. POINT 752J8 Area. As no one has set foot here for a long time, and since it was designated as XIG's fighter training area and no one else is allowed to enter, the natural environment here has been fully protected and developed. Today, this land has become a dense forest. The sunlight shines through the gaps between the leaves, creating patches of mottled light and shadows, and the lush green grass on the ground rustles when you step on it. Ah! Outings are the most enjoyable thing. Ake was leaning on his trekking pole, his eyes smiling under his sunglasses. You're right, Fujimiya-kun. Fujimiya looked at Jack's outfit speechlessly, muttering in his heart. For Jack, this forest was the only thing that mattered, and it didn't matter whether he had the equipment or not. Yake understood the intriguing look in his eyes instantly. Please, don't be such a spoiler. Traveling should always look like traveling. So where is the monster you were talking about? Isn't this the fighter training ground of XIG? Fujimiya shook his head, not understanding the whereabouts of Ark. Before leaving, she said something like she had received instructions from her superiors to go on a business trip, and then dragged him here. If this were discovered by XIG, he would probably be arrested and interrogated. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Above the forest, the roar of fighter planes was deafening. Fighter planes that were in training were flying high overhead, pressing down on the treetops. The wind pressure they created made it impossible for Fujimiya to open his eyes. Perhaps because the leaves in the dense forest were too dense, or because they were confident in the blockade of the area, the whereabouts of the two men were not discovered. Oh, what a cool fighter plane! I wonder if you can lend it to me to fly next time. Jack stood on tiptoe and looked into the distance, looking very interested. Suddenly, not far away from where Yak was looking, a cloud of dust rose into the sky. Yak's eyes lit up. We found the target, hurry up. After saying that, he carried Fujimiya away, not caring whether he was willing or not. Jack's steps were very fast. Each step was 7 or 8 meters long, and he stepped over any bushes or trees along the way. 2 minutes later, they arrived at the place, put Fujimiya on a tree branch, pointed down and said, "Look, that's it, our target today." The situation here obviously attracted the attention of the fighter planes, which hovered in the sky. Captain Yanida and others quickly reported the situation on the scene to the headquarters. Fujimiya looked in the direction of the finger. What caught my eye was a huge eye, just like a real human eye, with dense bloodshot veins distributed throughout it. There are eyes growing on the ground. Fujimiya was stunned for a moment, and instantly realized that this was the monster that Jack mentioned. He stretched out the sapphire bracelet on his wrist and was about to transform, but was grabbed by Jack. "Don't be so hasty. Don't be so reckless. Transform when you see a monster. Look carefully at that big eyeball." Fujimiya looked carefully, but couldn't make out anything. "Alas, humans are humans, you have to watch carefully." Jack shook his head and pressed the sapphire bracelet on Fujimiya's forehead. It was obvious that teaching a true Ultraman warrior was a long and arduous journey. Following Yak's guidance, Fujimiya's consciousness gradually sank into the sapphire, and the ocean energy immersed in it was extracted. When he opened his eyes again, Fujimiya's eyes were covered with blue light. "Oh, a new style of eyes." Jack clapped in agreement. Blocking out Yak's words, Fujimiya looked at the monster again. This time, the monster had completely changed in his eyes. The body of the eye became illusory, as if it were a series of phantoms. Invisible tentacles twisted on the ground, rolling up the rocks on the ground. From the outside, the eyeballs began to turn red and the surrounding objects seemed to float in thin air. The next moment, they collectively rushed into the sky like bullets and smashed towards the fighter plane. Fortunately, the two captains had excellent driving skills and were able to dodge it. The fighter's embarrassed look made his eyes lively, the pupil in the middle curved, and sharp laughs echoed in the forest. "Ja-ja-ja-ja-ja-ja." At this moment, whether it was Yak, Fujimiya or Memiya who was far away at the headquarters, they were all disturbed by this laughter. Due to his strong strength, Yak was fine, but he felt it was a bit noisy. On the other hand, Fujimiya, although he possessed the power of the earth, was still affected because his physical fitness and soul strength were not high enough. Fujimiya covered his head, and a series of strange scenes emerged in his mind. They were the people he had met since he was a child. Everyone looked at him strangely, and there was a hint of sarcasm on the corner of everyone's mouth. He seemed to see Yak standing in front of him looking at him with contempt, as if saying, "Why are you so weak?" Snapped. Fujimiya, who was sweating profusely, was awakened by a slap in the face. He felt a splitting headache on the back of his head and kept gasping for breath. Thank you." Yak, who woke Fujimiya up, waved his hand nonchalantly and said, "It's just a piece of cake. Even without me, you can still break free with your own willpower." "So, what did you see?" Yak came up with a gossipy look on his face. Looking at the guy's raised mouth, Fujimiya's gratitude instantly disappeared. "It's okay. Your expression, could it be that you are traumatized by the beating I gave you before?" No way, no way. No. Fujimiya felt like there was a stone blocking his heart. From childhood to adulthood, he had always been one of the best, no matter from which angle. Now that he met Yak, all his previous arrogance was completely crushed to pieces. In mid-air, the fighter planes received the message from headquarters, opened the weapon safety, and launched an attack on the big eyeball below. Several missiles swooped down, trailing flames, and pierced into the big eyeball, but the expected explosion did not occur. Instead, it sank like a quagmire, and finally aimed at the fighter planes and fought back. Boom! The two fighter planes made evasive moves at the same time, but the left wing of Captain Meishan's fighter plane was still hit. In an instant, the lights in the cabin came on, and the fighter plane lost power and fell towards the forest. Woohoo, this reminds me of an old friend. Jack raised his eyebrows. Although there were some differences, the result was the same. Call. The big eyeball on the ground suddenly disintegrated on its own and finally disappeared without a trace. Well, today's mission is successfully completed. Jack stretched. What did we do today? Fujimiya didn't react for a moment. What did they do today? It seems like nothing has been done. Yak patted Fujimiya on the shoulder and said, "Relax, eat your food one bite at a time, and fight the monsters one blow at a time. Just treat today as reconnaissance. By the way, what would you like to eat for dinner? Can you cook? Come on, it's you who cooks, Okay. Yake said as a matter of course. Chapter 104. Chinnan University. Two young men were sitting side by side on the bench, one of them seemed to be still dazed as if he had just woken up. Chang handed over the blueprint in his hand. Here, take it. It's the design of the remote flight control system. I modified 2 or 3 places, and it's basically fine now. Thank you. I dreamed of thanking him. Aiken and Jason Gamu are very good friends, and they both have outstanding performance in the laboratory of Chinnan University. Given their relationship, there is no need for any cumbersome words of thanks. I took a short nap and was not fully awake when I suddenly noticed the newspaper in Aiken's hand. What is that? Ga-NQ. Ah Chang unfolded the newspaper in his hand, and a huge eye appeared in front of my dream, exactly the same as what I saw in the J8 area at that time. So what are we doing here? On the high building, Fujimiya was sitting on the rooftop with his feet dangling in the air, looking at the humans on the ground who were like ants, and could not help but ask. Catch the monster. Yake was lying on his side, holding a small cake in one hand. Do you want to eat it? I bought 2 servings. I don't want to eat it. Fujimiya stared with a pair of dead fish eyes. He even paid for this guy's cake. Seeing this, Jack had no choice but to eat double the portion. The wind whistled in his ears, and in the distance was the boundless ocean. The subtle sound of waves was heard, bringing a little comfort to Fujimiya. Yak. Want some cake? Fujimiya's mouth twitched. I'm curious whether you are a human. Although you look like a real human, I always feel that your behavior is a little beyond normal. To be honest, there is a good person in a family who stays up in the middle of the night and lies on the ground typing Morse code, saying something to wake up the sleeping child. This question made Yake pause as he was feeding him, maybe in the past, but it's hard to say now. Fujimiya nodded, not surprised. When I was a member of Alchemy Star, I developed a light quantum computer, the Crisis, with my companions. The Crisis told me, the Earth and mankind will be destroyed by some unknown force. Through further calculations, the Crisis came up with a way to save the Earth, to eliminate humanity. I want to save the Earth, even at the expense of humanity. After saying this, Fujimiya looked at Jack with eager eyes, as if he wanted to get something from Jack. It should be roughly, recognition. This road is so incomprehensible. I remember that you inherited the will of the ocean, but the ocean has no self-awareness. It can only convey a vague concept to you to save the Earth. Yake looked into the distance and said, it's just that you don't understand one thing. What's the matter? The Earth will, what is his true intention? You have not communicated with him, oh, including that stupid Gaia. Yake shrugged indifferently, I don't care about the life and death of humans, they are just a small part of nature. My position is only for the Earth, and my mission from beginning to end is only one to care for and protect the Earth's will. As for the so-called prophecy, ha 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 ha. Yake was overjoyed. To be honest, my appearance has proved that prophecies and fate are bullshit. If such things really exist, I will burn them to ashes. In fact, it is very simple to explain it clearly. Just press Fujimiya and Kamugi's heads to the center of the Earth, and everything will be clear. But Yak refused. After all, cricket fighting was the most interesting thing. For a moment, Fujimiya, who was confused by what he heard, felt that he was enveloped by something, which seemed to be the breath of Lezi. The other side at this time. Womeng was still on the way, driving the car he had snatched from A Cheng while dialing the headquarters. Commander, I asked the geological research team to conduct an investigation. Please immediately evacuate the people in Makuta City and the surrounding areas and implement traffic control. The commander of the stone chamber did not refuse immediately and then scold me to ask whether my dream was awake. Instead, he patiently said, explain in detail. I dreamed, I have been speculating on the reason for the existence of that eye, but I forgot the most important thing, which is the whereabouts of the missile that was sucked away. At that time, Captain Yanida and Captain Kagyo fired at the same time, but according to statistics, only 3 missiles were reflected back, and the remaining one remained in the monster's body. Imeng continued, the missile is equipped with a tracking device. We only need to locate the monster based on the missile's location. At this moment in the headquarters, the Leland operator finally located the monster's position based on what I dreamed. Commander, in the underground of POINT 208F2 in Makuta City, there is an electromagnetic wave reaction rapidly approaching the ground. On the rooftop, after finishing his cake, Aik sat up and said, Fujimiya-kun, the actors are all here, let's get ready to start filming. What actor? Fujimiya was puzzled. Yake stretched out his finger and pointed into the distance. There was a loud earth-shaking noise, and the whole earth began to tremble. Then, the ground exploded. Countless pieces of gravel and dust flew up, forming a dust curtain that covered the sky. In the midst of the smoke and dust, an extremely huge monster slowly emerged from the ground. The strange beast Garen Q is here. Garen Q's construction is simply horrifying, with a giant eye in the center of its head that takes up almost half of its body. The limbs seemed to be entangled by twisted and deformed tentacles, which were covered with densely packed small eyes. They flashed faint light, like countless surveillance cameras, observing everything around them all the time. Every time these little eyes moved, a rustling sound was made, as if a group of hungry insects were gnawing at something. Ja. That kind of playful laughter once again appeared in my ears. Yak looked at the monster with disdain. Look carefully with your eyes, that thing is made of marble and metal, and the core is the biggest eye. Tisk, that's disgusting, I can't eat tonight after seeing you. At this time, the newly appeared Garen Q showed a strong desire for destruction. Purple destructive light bullets shot out from the big eye in the middle, causing extensive damage to the surrounding buildings. Without saying anything else, Ark pushed Fujimiya off the building and said, Fujimiya-yaman, it's up to you. Take care of it. Under Fujimiya's confused gaze, he was forced to jump out. After a few breaths, the blue ocean light lit up between the tall buildings. Fujimiya-yaman. Ultraman Agura form, appears. Chapter 105. This guy deliberately sucked down the missiles, and used the captured missile ammunition and rocket propellant as energy to enable his body to perform physical movements. Across the river, I turned on the communicator in my hand and told the headquarters about my guess. The raging fire on the other side of the river was absorbed by the big eye in the middle of Garen's Q and converted into its own energy. At this moment, XIG's lightning team arrived at the battlefield first. In Captain Kagyo's headset, Gamu's voice reminded, please pay attention to attacking the metal parts of the monster's body. I think this monster may use metal as an adhesive to fuse the rocks in its body. Clear. Captain Kagyo nodded in response, and turned his gaze to the monsters wreaking havoc below. Everyone, attack. The three fighters formed a finished product, and the triggers were pulled at the same time, and red energy lasers exploded on the metal veins on Garen Q's limbs. Sizzle. Garen Q staggered forward 2 steps, as if the previous attack affected his movements, but he quickly readjusted himself. A purple light shone from the huge eyes on the head, and the fighter plane piloted by Captain Kagyo was unable to dodge and was absorbed by the light. Not good. Captain Kagyo, get out of here quickly. Following the shouts of his teammates, Kagyo increased the power of his fighter to the maximum, but it was still no match for Garen's Q's absorption beam. He could only watch himself being dragged over little by little. Suddenly, a dazzling blue light streaked across the city skyline like lightning, causing people to stop and look up. On the glass curtain walls of those towering skyscrapers, an extremely huge, majestic, and solemn blue Ultraman figure is reflected. Ultraman Agura pointed at the monster with one hand, and fired crescent-shaped light bullets mercilessly at Garen Q. As for Captain Kagyo, who was locked by the monster, Fujimiya said, I'm not familiar with you, thank you, I haven't considered you. If you are lucky, you might be able to survive. At this moment, I was under great pressure. The fear that Garen Q had brought to him before was too great, but now he could no longer sit still. He took out the sapphire cone in his arms and said, I can't be afraid anymore, Gaia. I'm counting on you. Gaia. Like an awakening roar, the red light of the Earth's will responded to him. At this moment, Ultraman Gaia was flying over the sea and rushing towards the monster. It seemed that he sensed my dream's determination. The speed at which Gaia burst out was even faster than Agura's cutting speed. Boom! Gaia slammed into Garen Q hard, grabbed its waist and smashed it to the ground together. The shock was like a landslide, and even Yak, who was watching the show in the city, could feel it. The dust rising into the sky was almost like smog, blocking the direction of the fighter planes. With Gaia's help, Kagyo stepped on the accelerator, broke free from his restraints, and made a sharp turn to escape from the battlefield. The blue light bullet grazed the fighter's chassis and exploded in the open space. Hiss, so cruel. Yak, who was watching the battle on the rooftop, was grinning. Gaia's sudden and violent attack, is he really the representative of the will of the Earth? Even if the Earth loves you deeply, you should at least be a little gentle. Gaia pounced on the monster and raised his fist to hit the big eye in the middle, but this seemed to be a weak point, but in fact it was very hard. Although it caused a little damage to Garen's Q, it also aroused its anger. Garen Q flipped the giant on his body, swung his wrist like a whip, and hit Gaia's abdomen hard. But Gaia is the concrete representative of the earth after all, and his tankiness is still decent. He can withstand the beating of Garen's Q and fight with an attitude of exchanging injuries for injuries. Gaia grabbed the two horn-like things sticking out of the monster's head, slammed his knee into the big eyeball mercilessly, and finally pushed Garen Q hard. The energy gathered in the legs, and he kicked the monster in the forehead with a high kick. Boom! A 55,000-ton monster flew into the air and finally crashed into the factory building. It is good. Pretty. The lightning team, acting as the atmosphere group, cheered loudly. At this moment, a ghoul was still walking slowly on the road. Just when everyone thought the situation was settled, Garen's Q strangely floated up and didn't seem to have received much damage. Choo choo choo! Purple destructive light bullets shot out from Garen Q's eyes and rushed towards Gaia at an extremely fast speed. Seeing this, I Meng quickly raised my arms to resist. Boom boom boom! Continuous explosions exploded all over Gaia's body. When the flames faded, I Meng was already kneeling on one knee powerlessly. He 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 he! Garen Q's big eyes twisted in a mocking expression. The absorbing light enveloped Ultraman Gaia, dragging him towards itself, preparing to absorb Gaia as energy. It's really embarrassing. An ethereal voice like the echo of the sea rang in my ears in my dreams. A blue giant walked up to Gaia, pinched Gaia's shoulder and pushed him aside. Stay away. Under the huge force, Gaia rolled on the ground in a mess. Although it didn't look very decent, at least he would not be eaten. A guru hooked at Garen Q with one hand. Come, I will fight you. In an instant, an aura of a powerful king spread out. Garen Q also realized that the blue giant in front of him was not simple. He bombarded a guru with purple destructive light bombs in turn, trying to drown and kill him. It's just a small plan. A blue sword blade slipped from his palm, and a guru swung the sword, and countless sword shadows flashed by suddenly. In an instant, the seemingly dense light bullets were split apart and turned into gorgeous fireworks, illuminating a goal-standing figure. Oh my god, this kid's strength is not that great, but he's quite good at pretending to be cool. The corners of Jack's mouth twitched, and he couldn't help but praise him. At this time, Fujimiya stood there seemingly calm, but in fact he was in deep thought. No, am I that strong now? He was originally prepared to take a couple of beatings, but who could have thought that he would be so strong? Thinking about how he had been dragged by Yak and beaten unilaterally these days, he suddenly figured it out. Fighting with Yak is like a peak showdown, all you do is get beaten. Now, throwing myself into the Bronze League, the precious experience of being beaten instantly turned into my capital. Sure enough, Yakechan never lied to me. Thinking about his experiences over the past few days, Fujimiya felt both relieved and angry. Then he turned his attention to Garen Q. The malicious eyes and suppressed emotions were boiling at this moment. Boom! A guru stepped on the ground with one foot, turned into a blue phantom and rushed towards the monster, the sword in his hand bursting with fierce murderous intent. Monster, die! Chapter 106. Boom! Garen's Q exploded. Under Fujimiya's fierce attack, Garen Q had no ability to resist at all. Even its most proud mocking eyes could not interfere with Fujimiya in the slightest. This kid actually became so much stronger after being beaten up. He seems to have great potential. Yak sat on the edge of the rooftop with his legs dangling in the air, pointing at a goal. The monster was destroyed, and Aguru and Gaia disappeared into the sky. In the energy field invisible to ordinary people, a string of blue light spots gathered towards Yak, and finally a human appeared next to Yak. Mission accomplished, let's go back. Fujimiya's voice remained calm, but the slightly upturned corners of his mouth indicated his current mood. The feeling of being a hero, not bad. Yak stood up and stretched. I have something to do and I may be back late. You don't have to keep me for dinner tonight. After saying that, he turned around, waved goodbye to Fujimiya, and fell backwards. You go do it. Fujimiya looked down, and Ark's figure had disappeared without a trace. What? The speed is so fast, it seems I'm still not strong enough. Fujimiya murmured to himself. Aerial Air Base. The on-site investigator of the monster's corpse arrived at the hangar by plane. Hey, Yamamoto, Did your monster figure out anything? Don't say anything, it's just a pile of dirt and rocks, nothing else. The guide who had been waiting for a long time came forward and greeted them. While the XIG personnel were communicating, a black shadow quietly landed from the bottom of the plane and entered the base by stepping on the shadow of the corner. This place is quite big. Yak, squatting in the corner, looked up at the camera on the side. These things were everywhere here. It is extremely difficult to rely on physical skills and speed to avoid all cameras and permission controls. Yak felt around in the system space and pulled out a belt. Hinkson. Singulares. Singularity upgrade. A strong malice exploded, and a set of armor covered Yak, long lost comfort. The scarlet artificial eye on the visor has precise mechanical lines, and wisps of black malice flow through it, the moment the artificial eye locks onto the camera. In just a moment, the entire air base was invaded by endless data streams. Every time a module was infected, it would be assimilated like a plague, but the main control room could not detect any abnormalities. After a few breaths, Yak received the news the invasion of the air base was completed. Now all I need is a set of XIG work clothes. Yak glanced around and stared at a man who was about the same height as him, and smiled slightly. When he appeared again, he was already at the door of the toilet, wearing XIG's clothes. As for the original person, he was probably still sleeping on the toilet. Hiss, let me look at the map. According to the information given by the armor, we should go north. Although he was disarmed, the artificial eye was still effective. Following the guidance, Jack finally arrived at the cafeteria. I looked up and saw that the food at XIG was really good. I ordered a few and found a seat to try them. Well, it's still not as good as Fujimiya's cooking. While chewing on the ribs, Yak looked around, and finally he waited for what he wanted. I dream of mountains. In this battle, Gamu's on-site analysis was really good, and it changed Captain Kagio's opinion of him a lot, although he still spoke coldly. In the room, after finishing my meal, I lay down to rest early. In the dim room, the messy floor was littered with things and there was no place to step. Yak tutted in disdain, a bachelor without a girlfriend. Then, Yak quietly came to the end of the bed, looked at my peaceful face lying on the bed, and felt a little bit of evil interest. Ultraman of the universe, open your eyes, I am Ultraman Gaia, I am the embodiment of the will of the earth. Wake up, Superman of the universe. A series of solemn voices echoed in my dream mind, and suddenly, he woke up. What's even more frightening is that there's someone squatting at the end of his bed, staring at him. Wow! I was so scared that my face turned pale. One hand was desperately touching the sapphire cone that I didn't know where I put it. Shut up! Yak snapped his fingers, and a beam of dark energy rushed out from the magic stick on his waist and directly hit Imeng's mouth. Why are you making so much noise? Can't you be quiet a little? Besides, am I that scary? Yak rolled his eyes. First, I'm human. Second, I have sealed the room, so no one can hear you even if you shout at the top of your lungs. Third, I'm not here to cause you any trouble. Understand? Seeing the frightened look in my eyes after waking up from a dream, Yake could only shake his head helplessly. It doesn't matter if you don't understand, you will understand later. Then, Yake snapped his fingers and the lights in the whole room came on. With the help of the light, I finally saw the person in front of me clearly and screamed with excitement. Okay, I know you're anxious, but don't be anxious yet. Yake raised his hand and removed the seal on my dream's mouth. I've seen you before. You're the man on the beach who turned into Blue Ultraman. Imeng said excitedly, you're also Ultraman. Yake scratched his head, that's only half right. Who are you? I asked in my dream. Suddenly, Yake's eyes lit up, good question. As soon as he cleared his throat, he said, I am the forbidden guard of the will of the earth, the gatekeeper of eternal authority, the destructive beast that purifies heretics, the king of monsters, the mentor of Ultraman, come and fight Yak. I was stunned by the series of titles. Although I didn't understand them very well, they sounded very impressive. Imeng asked in a low voice, then may I ask Mr. Yake, what is the purpose of your visit to me? Yake grinned and said, young man, do you want to explore the true meaning of life? Do you want to truly live? Snapped. Snapped. A long whip hit the floor heavily, making a clear and loud sound. I dreamt that there was a hemp rope wrapped around my shoulders and a training tire was dragging behind me with a rubber stamp on top. Everything was so wonderful. He just said the word want and in an instant he arrived at this unknown place. Then he was dragged by Yak to undergo devilish training. On the tire, Jack was holding a big loudspeaker and the long whip in his hand was like a wriggling snake. If I dreamed of being a little lazy, the whip would hit me. The main thing is that this thing not only hurts, but also doesn't leave even a mark. A new storm has appeared. How can you stand still? Monsters are appearing frequently while your strength has not improved at all. How can you sleep at your age and stage? Yake shouted through a loudspeaker. Chapter 107. Drip, drip, drip. In the morning, the sound of the communicator was particularly harsh, waking me up from my dream. Ouch! My arms, my legs, my back and my appendix. I woke up suddenly and felt pain all over my body. For a moment, I didn't even know where to cover. I grimaced as I recalled the torturous training last night. At the end of the bed, Yake, who was eating breakfast, squinted his eyes, glanced at Womeng who was singing a jingle, and threw 2 steamed buns in his face, "Your breakfast." But I was in no mood to eat. I climbed up and down everywhere, looking for my communicator. Sure enough, it was found among a pile of books in the corner. When I opened it, I saw it was a message from Captain Yanida. "Hey, kid, what are you doing?" "I'm sorry." I apologized quickly. "There's a meteorite falling in Yokohama, go and see what's going on." "I know, I'll go right away." After saying that, he hung up the phone and turned around to explain the situation to Yak, only to find that Yak had disappeared. "What's going on? The door isn't even open. Could it be?" I looked at the open window with a strange expression. This is an aerospace base. In the cockpit, Womeng, who had already boarded the fighter plane, held a screwdriver in his mouth and connected the gadget in his hand to the operating table. "Wow, my dream team member, this is called illegal modification. If you are caught, you will be fined no less than 200 yuan but no more than 2,000 yuan, and your driver's license will be revoked." Next to him, a familiar figure was leaning against the hanging window, drinking tea with relish. Yak! Wow! I was so frightened that the screwdriver in my mouth fell to the ground. "Yake, can't you just show up in a normal way? You scared me to death." "I'll definitely do it next time. By the way, let's have some tea first." Yake nodded nonchalantly and handed over the teacup in his hand. No, I still have to carry out my mission. I just heard that someone from the maintenance team was kidnapped at the base last night. His clothes were stripped off and he slept in the toilet all night. He was found early in the morning." Womeng, who was restless, told interesting stories that happened in the base. To be honest, he didn't really believe such things. XIG's aerospace base is high in the sky. How could someone be suddenly attacked? You did it. Jack shrugged without commenting. What happened last night was indeed a bit rough. For a moment, I felt dizzy and dark in my dream. I actually spent the whole night with a dangerous person. Yake comforted him, "Don't worry, I took care of it early this morning. This kind of thing won't happen again in the future. Trust me." Looking at Yake's determined eyes, I asked tremblingly, "Excuse me, how did you solve it?" "There are still a lot of uniforms in the storage room, so I took 2 sets." I breathed a sigh of relief. It was okay, at least nothing serious happened. Then I hacked into XIG's main control room, entered my personal information, and made a profile card. Yak happily showed the card with his own photo. My heart, which had been hanging in the air for a while, finally died. In just a day or so, he went from being a newly promoted XIG rookie to an accomplice of a dangerous person. If he was caught, I dreamed that the road of life was dark. Don't worry. Yake patted my dream's shoulder, "Everything will be fine as long as we are not caught." "I hope so." I smiled bitterly. At this time, the hangar broadcast sounded, "My team member Meng, what are you doing? Hurry up and complete the mission." The fighter plane stayed for too long, and people were getting impatient. At that moment, I dreamed of quickly starting the fighter plane. Yokohama. According to the location given, Meng and the other person found a fenced-off open space. The surrounding grass had been burned clean. In the middle of a big pit, several people in brown uniforms were cleaning something. "Hello, I'm Gao Shan Womeng from XIG. Is this the place where the meteorite fell?" "Well, same crap as usual. Yake grabbed my dream's head and looked into the pit. What else could it be except a meteorite to create such a big pit in a black thing? Is it your head? That makes sense. I nodded. A man in his 40s or 50s stepped out of the team cleaning up the scene and said, "Hello, I'm Higuchi from Geo Base. The meteorite passed through that building and fell here." Looking in the direction of the finger, a huge circular hole appeared in the middle of a building with more than 10 floors. The steel pipe rack extended outward, with glass shards hanging on it, and the charred parts were obviously caused by severe friction. Soon, Higuchi brought a fragment of a mechanical object on a small iron plate. "This is it." Imeng nodded and turned to talk to Yake, but he was gone again. I dreamed and turned to Higuchi. "Excuse me, did you see where the person I was just next to went?" "Who is it?" Higuchi was a little confused. "Team Meng, weren't you the only one here just now?" Wo Meng's whole body froze. It seemed that only I could see what Yak looked like just now. But when I thought of how he looked when he transformed into a guru before, it didn't feel strange anymore. "Yeah, it's okay. Maybe I didn't sleep well last night. Where are we going next?" "Zio Base," Higuchi said. Following Higuchi's steps, the two came to an off-road vehicle. I dreamed. A gentle call sounded in my ears, and Imeng subconsciously looked in one direction, and he saw a familiar person, Fujimiya Hiroya. Gamua quickly said to Higuchi, "Please wait a moment, I have something to take care of, please." After saying that, he ran away without looking back. On the high bridge, I dreamed quickly forward, looked at the familiar person in front of me, and couldn't help shouting, "Fujimiya!" Fujimiya still had a cold face. "I thought you would change. You are still with those good friends. What about you? Why don't you show up in front of us and join forces with us to save the Earth?" Imeng was eager to know why Fujimiya's ideas became so radical that he was even willing to abandon everything around him. "I dream." Fujimiya interrupted him with a loud shout, "It's no use just thinking about defeating the enemy in front of you. You should use your strength more effectively. The person being talked about is Ultraman Gaia." Seeing that Wo Meng was silent, Fujimiya did not continue to speak, but walked away slowly. "Hurry up, Wo Meng." On the quiet path, Fujimiya put his hands in his pockets, and the passing breeze blew his long hair at the temples. Isn't that a bit too hurtful to him? Jack took brisk steps with his hands folded behind his head. "Hurt you?" Just as he was about to say it, Fujimiya felt that it was too indecent and would damage his image, so he changed the subject. "Where did you go?" "Travel." Chapter 108. Travel. Yake answered casually. Fujimiya answered casually without any doubt. After these days of contact, he had a better understanding of Jack's personality. Lazy, playful, and not doing his job properly. Fujimiya asked, "What are your plans next? And what about that thing that penetrated the building? Do you have any clues?" Although he only saw it from a distance, as a member of the original alchemy star, Fujimiya immediately determined that the thing was not a creation of the current Earth. As he was talking, something suddenly appeared in Yaka's hand, and it looked familiar. Sapphire bracelet. Fujimiya quickly raised his hand and took a look, and sure enough, he was right. "Damn, I didn't even notice when he did it. Still not strong enough." Fujimiya glared at Ake's shameless behavior, but he could only grit his teeth and swallow his anger. Jack, holding the sapphire bracelet, put it on gently and immersed himself in it. Authorization approved, connecting to the ocean's will. Connection completed. Welcome, respected Lord Ark. Although the Earth will of Gaia's world has just been born, it is very smart and has split itself into two sub-wills to become Ultraman. In order to prevent someone from stealing this power while he was sleeping, he added special insurance. However, this authority was too old, so Yak had to be authenticated before using it. The moment the authority was accessed, Jack seemed to merge into the sea, rising and falling with the waves and tides. At this moment, his will spanned thousands of miles, patrolling everything in the ocean, excluding land of course. After 2.5 breaths, Yak locked onto an unusual place. "That's it." He took off the bracelet from his wrist and threw it to Fujimiya. "Let's go, it's time to change places." "Where are you going?" Fujimiya was puzzled. "Fishing." Yak grinned, picked up Fujimiya and leaped, stepping on the tall buildings in the city and flying into the distance. On the cliffs of the island, 2 long fishing lines hang down into the rough sea below. "Can you really catch fish in this place?" Fujimiya didn't understand. he really didn't understand. We said we would find an unusual place, why did you come here to fish? What makes people most gnashing their teeth is that they had to pay for the fishing rod themselves. However, Ark's training, beating, was very effective, so Fujimiya endured it. Whether it's abnormal or not is another matter. Can we really catch any fish? Fujimiya asked. Young people are impatient. Yake calmly took a sip of tea. Yake is fishing, those who are willing to take the bait. Just as he finished speaking, the fishing rod in Fujimiya's hand trembled violently. In this situation, Fujimiya quickly reeled in the rod, and a fish weighing more than 10 kilograms was pulled up. As expected, he is the human form of Ultraman. Then, Yak went berserk. Fuck fishing, there's not a single fish to catch. Jack kicked the fishing rod hard and sent it directly into the sea. Half an hour, a full half an hour. It would be fine if I was fishing alone, but Fujimiya next to me caught 7 fish in half an hour. No, Buddy was less than 1 meter away. Maybe my bait was poisonous. In an instant, Fujimiya was sublime, and for the first time he found the aspect that could defeat Yak. Cool. Yake sat down angrily, and Fujimiya beside him tried to comfort him by suppressing his joy. After a while, Jack finally recovered. The two fished for a long time, but somehow the sky suddenly became darker and the wind got stronger. Something is wrong. Fujimiya frowned slightly. Of course. Do you really think I'm here just to fish? Yak gulped down a cup of tea, looking at the dark clouds in the distance. Isn't it? Fujimiya was stunned. I'm so angry and cold. When will Leoze be able to stand up? Ignoring the truth that Fujimiya blurted out, Ake pointed to the distance and said, look over there carefully and see if you can see anything. Fujimiya nodded and used the energy of the sapphire bracelet to cover his eyes. When he opened them again, his eyes were full of blue. I saw a gathering hurricane. There seems to be a dark object inside, like a pillar. Yake crossed his legs and said, increase the dosage. Clear. Fujimiya continued to amplify the energy supply, while at the same time he had to be careful to control the appropriate flow rate. He was the embodiment of the ocean's will, but he was not the ocean after all. Once the dose was too large, his entire brain would be washed away. As the saying goes, regardless of dosage, it's all hooliganism. With greater energy, Fujimiya's entire eyes were emitting blue light, and standing on the cliff, they were as bright as LED lights. The originally blurry scene became clear in his eyes. After seeing what was inside, Fujimiya widened his eyes, that is, a machine. There are a few words on it, which look a bit like the seal script of the Great Eastern country. Fujimiya also studied it a bit and could vaguely tell, heaven, heaven. The natural control machine celestial, here we go. In the eyes of Yak and Fujimiya, the huge machine was like a bronze bell. The intricate and exquisite patterns on it showed its excellent workmanship. A large amount of gas and hurricane force winds gushed out from the tail of the pendulum, eventually forming a typhoon. Choo choo choo. Before Fujimiya could figure out what to do with the machine, several fighter planes flew across the sky and headed towards the typhoon. Mir will remain on standby in the stratosphere as planned, Captain Yanida ordered. I dreamed, I understand. On the other side, Captain Kagyo looked at the dark mass in the distance and asked, my dream, is it true that this typhoon cleans up the pollution created by humans on the Earth? When they first arrived at the base, Alchemy Star concluded that the atmosphere through which the typhoon passed contained a sharp decrease in fluorocarbon compounds, methane, and other components. If the typhoon continues to blow, the Earth's atmosphere will be completely purified in another half a year. However, once it enters human urban areas, the damage it causes will be devastating. Proceed as planned. Captain Kagyo glanced at the altitude indicator next to him. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and exhale slowly. When you open your eyes, there is no fear. Swing the joystick and drill towards the eye of the storm in the center. The moment it entered the typhoon, an extremely strong airflow caused the entire fighter plane to shake violently, and the fuselage seemed to be falling apart under the tearing of the strong wind. 10,000 meters. 9 kilometers. 8,000 meters. Kagyo, come back. My voice was very loud in the headset. After hearing Gamu's answer, Kagyo immediately opened the safety of his weapons, and 2 missiles, trailing red flames, blasted downwards. After finishing everything, Kagyo immediately pulled up the operating lever and climbed upwards. Chapter 109. In the eye of the typhoon, violent lightning flashed, and the occasional roar made people feel depressed. Everyone's eyes were fixed there, expecting that person to appear. Must live. Suddenly, a blue fighter plane roared out and Captain Kagyo came out. Good job! Woohoo, Captain Kagyo is the best! Whether it was Captain Mi Tian who was traveling with them, or the team members who were paying close attention in the base, they all shouted in unison, awesome! To be able to complete the task under such extreme circumstances requires not only superb skills but also extraordinary courage. Kagyo! I murmured softly, and my heart finally settled down. And Kagyo also gave Memu a thumbs up, indicating that everything was fine with her. Boom! There was a blaze of fire in the eye of the typhoon, and the sound of explosions turned into dense, dull drum beats, as if they were hitting something. The red flames illuminated the clouds, and the raging wind raised the flames, like a warm cloud suppressing its anger. At this moment, news came from the base. According to the detector, the heat source has disappeared and the updraft has also disappeared. Good news! The commander breathed a sigh of relief, finally being able to sit down and have a cup of tea. No, there seems to be something. Shishi was just about to sit down when Atsuko's words made him pause. The real-time scene was displayed on the big screen. A huge mechanical creation was suspended in the air. The dark clouds and hurricanes that enveloped it disappeared because the mechanical parts at the bottom stopped working. Scarlet lightning flowed on the intricate patterns, and the bright crystals inlaid on them were as dazzling as the shining stars in the sky. On the mechanical creation, 2 large characters were clearly visible, but they did not look like Japanese. But the commander of the stone chamber could read it out faintly, Heaven, Realm. At the scene, facing this huge creation, everyone was deeply shocked and even forgot to breathe for a moment. It is so magnificent, with a simple and solemn shape that one can't help but wonder if it is an ancient bronze bell made by the ancients. Looking at the embossed font, I suddenly thought of the meteorite that was excavated at the beginning. That fragment seems to be from this thing. Sizzle! The bronze surface of the heaven suddenly flashed with dazzling electric light, and the harsh sound of electricity was heart-wrenching, sounding like a home appliance malfunction. As it turned out, it was true. The sky trembled suddenly, and the whole body fell directly downwards. The strange thing was that the direction was in a very strange arc, and it hit the small town by the sea. Boom boom boom! Tens of thousands of tons of metal smashed through the concrete ground and sank into the ground in an upside-down position. The smoke that rose up covered the sky and made it impossible to open one's eyes. Everyone, please note that the heavens have arrived on land, please be prepared for battle. Atsuko said. At the same time, the lightning team led by Captain Kagyo immediately arrived at the battlefield and launched an attack on the heavens. The destructive power of the heavens has been calculated to be extremely terrifying, and judging from its intention to move towards land, no one will allow it to stay on the continent. In order to solve the hidden danger, eliminating it is the best way. At once, lasers and missiles were aimed at Tianji's motionless body and fired at the same time. A deafening explosion resounded across the bronze surface of the celestial realm, but when the smoke cleared, Captain Kagyo was shocked to find that his almost saturation attack had caused no damage at all. This thing is too hard. Suddenly, my dream's voice came through the headset, get away from Tianji, it's moving again. What? Without having time to think, the members of Team Lightning immediately took evasive action based on the muscle memory they had formed over a long period of time. The celestial being that was stuck in the ground trembled violently, jumped up from the ground, turned 180 degrees in the air, and slammed its flat head heavily on the ground. The ground shook violently, causing nearby cars to bounce and many houses to collapse. What's happening here? Is the heaven going crazy? Yake, what are you doing? Should we stay here or not? Fujimiya, holding a telescope, stared at the crazy sky in the distance and urged Yak without turning his head. On the other hand, Yak was lying on the ground with his ears pressed to the ground, tapping his hands non-stop. After a while, Jack finally got up. So, you know what's going on? Fujimiya came over and asked. Yak nodded and said, I roughly understand. Talk about it. Yak narrated, according to the information I got, there is not just one but 3 mechanical creations of this kind, namely Heaven, Yunshin, and Deep Green. As for who made it, the information I got was future humans. Future humans. Fujimiya had a puzzled look on his face, and the words keep making it up were almost written on his face. Yak rolled his eyes and said, anyway, this is the news I got. Believe it or not, although the future people did this purely because their mentality collapsed, this thing is still good. Speaking of this, Ark's eyes sparkled. If he collected the 3 machines and spliced them together to make a Gundam. Next time we fight, can we start with the words "I will attack" in Gundam form? Damn, which boy doesn't have a dream of driving a big car? Thinking of this, Yak couldn't help but licking his lips, and his gaze towards the heaven became even more passionate. Yak started to go crazy again. Fujimiya looked at Yak and sighed secretly, so what is the situation in the heaven before us? Speaking of this, Yak's face turned a little weird. It's probably because it hasn't been taken care of for many years, and it was hit twice while in operation, so there was a problem with the circuit. In other words, I don't know what's wrong with me. Oh, that's enough. Fujimiya shook his head. Immediately, Yak held Fujimiya's hand and looked into his eyes lovingly. Fujimiya-san, I want that heaven. Aha! Fujimiya shuddered all over and tried desperately to pull his hand out, but Yak's grip was too strong. Let go. Let go. I want that heaven, help me take it down. In the end, Fujimiya couldn't resist and could only agree, okay, I'll go, okay? I really can't understand it, you are so strong, why can't you just go by yourself? Why do you have to make me go? That's so tiring, it's better to have someone else do it for you. In the blink of an eye, Jack took out a beach chair from somewhere, wearing sunglasses on his face and a parasol next to him. She comfortably enjoyed afternoon tea and small cakes, and waved lazily to Fujimiya, go soon, come back soon, do your best, Fujimiya-san. Chapter 110. Huge circular pits of the same size are arranged in the middle of the town, and there are cracks everywhere that have been torn open by tremors. Lightning team, retreat quickly. Iman, who was an observer at the side, widened his eyes and reminded loudly into the communicator. I dreamed, and it happened again. Before Kagyo could finish his words, he felt the fuselage shaking violently. He looked outside and immediately shouted in fear, avoid! Avoid! Avoid immediately! He saw that a hurricane was rising from the ground out of nowhere. The heaven was creating a typhoon. The black tornado, mixed with the roar of thunderstorm, came back to the world. This power, like that of a god in the sky, made mortals feel the height as if it were a natural chasm. Rocks weighing several tons were rolled up and turned into the sharpest blades under high-speed rotation. The lush ancient forests were uprooted, revealing bare hills. Not to mention the houses built by humans, they were meaningless under the mighty force of nature. Boom boom boom. The roar of the typhoon, the howl of the thunderstorm, and the crash of destroyed towns intertwined, and there seemed to be faint prayers and wails from humans to the gods. We must stop it. At this rate, it is estimated that the heavens will enter the capital area in 15 minutes. Atsuko from the aerospace base gave extremely bad news. On the fighter plane, I dreamed of activating the automatic control system that I had urgently made, and took out the sapphire cone from my arms. In an instant, the red earth light shone. A huge red giant appeared out of nowhere in mid-air, his tall and sturdy body showed his strength, and his taut muscles were the armor bestowed on him by the earth. Boom! Ultraman Gaia fell heavily to the ground, and the huge shock was no less than the one caused by the shock in the heaven just now, and it was even slightly greater. Facing the hurricane, Gaia broke through the obscuring dust and rushed towards the heaven, slashing the bronze surface of the heaven with his hand knife. It was no use though, it was too hard. On the other hand, the heaven realm that was being beaten did not launch an attack the moment Gaia rushed over. It seemed that it was analyzing what the giant in front of it was. After being hit twice, Fujimiya asked in confusion, Yak, why does the celestial realm just stand there and take the beating? Won't it fight back? Yak, who was lying on a beach chair drinking tea, waved his hand nonchalantly. The celestial realm was created to clean up the earth. According to its own orders, it was designed to eliminate obstacles, but it has been in disrepair for a long time, and the intelligent AI version is probably a bit low, so it is a bit slow in analyzing Gaia's data. Look, isn't it moving now? Yak nodded towards the distance. Sure enough, after being hit twice, the heaven realm completely listed Gaia as a target for elimination, and he dodged Gaia's high whip kick by jumping into the air. It even shook in mid-air, and its hard bronze body slammed heavily into Gaia's chest. Boom! Just like the ringing of a bronze bell in an ancient temple in the early morning, lightning attached to the surface of the heavens struck Gaia. The huge force knocked Gaia flying, and the lightning turned into streaks of lightning, which pulled my dream electricity away. But as the embodiment of the earth's will, Gaia had enough resistance and adapted immediately, getting up from the ground. Facing the heaven that was carrying a hurricane and was crashing towards me, I didn't even try to dodge. I walked straight forward and grabbed the pendulum of heaven with both hands. Hiss! This looks a bit painful. In broad daylight, blinding lightning flashed across Gaia's body, blinding people from opening their eyes. The reflection of two gigantic monsters wrestling with each other was reflected in Jack's sunglasses. Has he always been so brave? Yak pointed at Gaia, who was gradually being electrocuted and falling into a disadvantage in the distance, and turned to look at Fujimiya. Fujimiya turned his head away, expressionless. I don't know him. Damn, that's so embarrassing. Even if you are the will of the earth, even if you are thick-skinned and tough, you can't just rely on your own strength and just endure it. No, it's been a while since you were chosen. Don't you want to learn any fighting skills? Fujimiya was embarrassed to admit in front of Ake that they both came from the same laboratory. Instead, Yak looked at my dream with great interest. This familiar feeling was simply a replica of Daegu. Yak said, "Don't look at me, Fujimiya-san. It's your turn to perform." I know, don't rush me." Fujimiya-lian was embarrassed and rolled up his sleeves impatiently. A goal. The torrent from the blue ocean hit the coast, and the blue giant cast a shadow from the sky. When it passed over Ark's head, Fujimiya saw Ark below giving him a thumbs up, indicating that he should not forget his Gundam. Damn, this is really annoying. At this moment, Gaia's electric shock had caused a red light to appear, but this silly child was sucked in by the hurricane in heaven at full power and would not be allowed to leave. Fujimiya arrived at the battlefield with a dark face. Without even saying hello, he just went up and kicked Gaia away. "Don't block the way. If you can't beat me, let me do it." Fujimiya unceremoniously asked Gaia to stay aside. Imeng was half kneeling on the ground, breathing heavily. Agol's strength was also restrained and did not cause much damage. "Fujimiya, you just need to practice more." Fujimiya sneered without hesitation, and then took a fighting stance towards the Celestial. "Ark asked you to build a Gundam, but he didn't say he wanted a complete one, right? Then you can't blame me." Fujimiya smiled secretly. A blue blade of light slid down from his arm, and Fujimiya stepped on the ground, rushing towards the heaven with the sword in hand. Faced with the sudden appearance of the second giant, the heavenly realm reacted very quickly and directly listed it as a target for cleaning up. The two collided with each other, sparks flew from the collision of metal, and the clanging sound of iron hammering echoed in the sky. Wow, the shell of this thing is quite hard. Fujimiya was a little speechless. His light blade couldn't break through the defense of heaven for a while, but Fujimiya soon thought of a solution. Jack had said before that the heavenly realm was built a long time ago, otherwise there wouldn't be fragments breaking off and smashing through the building. Since it has been in disrepair for a long time, there must be some damage or weak points. Fujimiya glanced at Wiming, who was stunned by the fight between him and Tianjia. "Tisk, my Meng, watch carefully, this is what a real battle is like." Fujimiya reminded, and then he jumped back with both feet, holding the light blade in one hand and firing light bullets in the other hand. The endless blue palm light arrows, like heavy rain falling from the sky, bombarded every corner of the heaven. Finally, in just a few seconds, a crack appeared on the indestructible bronze shell of the heaven. "It's now." The floating Aguru suddenly surged to its maximum speed, and the light blade in his hand pierced into the gap accurately. At this moment, the world was completely silent. Click! Aguru exerted force suddenly, and the blade of light cut through the outer shell of the heaven, splitting it directly into two halves. Heaven, dead. Chapter 111. Since the appearance of Gob, the types of monsters that continue to appear are too numerous to be classified. If these monsters are named as the members of Alchemy Star, they are called root destruction forms. What exactly is their purpose? The mystery becomes deeper and deeper. Is humanity going to be ravaged by monsters? Is it destined to be destroyed? The female host on TV spoke solemnly about the suffering that mankind has endured in recent days. Finally, she changed the subject and talked about Gaia and Aguru, two Ultramen who often appeared. Fujimiya was eating ramen and watching the host on TV giving Agul a relatively positive evaluation, without any reaction. "Hey, Yak, I've chopped down the entire heaven. Is this thing useful to you?" Fujimiya asked Yak, who was banging on something. "It's really embarrassing to say, I said I would bring back a living person for Yak, but who knew that I used too much force and split the sky in half?" In the end, only the core component was left, so we took it back and handed it in. The nuclear energy in Jack's palm surged, and he welded the objects on the table fiercely, and in the process, he hastily used tape to fix the broken wires that were already sparking. Finally, I breathed a sigh of relief and it was finally completed. Then, he looked at Fujimiya with disdain. You are a top student from the Alchemy Star, you ignorant bumpkin, this thing is the core of the heaven. Facing Ake's words, Fujimiya gritted his teeth and hypnotized himself secretly in his heart. Don't be angry, don't be angry. It was me who accidentally chopped down the heaven. Yak picked up the dumbbell-like core of the celestial realm and tossed it in his hand. The entire celestial shell is not important, the only important thing is the core in my hand. Although it lacks maintenance and looks like a broken dumbbell, I only need to rebuild the shell and put the core in, and it will be a new heaven again. Listening to Ake's bold words, Fujimiya couldn't help but shake his head. But where do you want me to find a laboratory that can accommodate the celestial world? Hehe, just because you don't have a big brother on the list doesn't mean I don't have one. Yake grinned and stomped the floor. Big brother bang, get up and build me a lab. In an instant, a majestic golden wool gushed out from the core of the earth. With Yak as the center, time within 100 miles froze instantly. Gaia's world wool has arrived. His container is Fujimiya Hiroya. Hello, Ark. First of all, I would like to remind you that, based on Fujimiya Hiroya's physical capacity, the maximum he can endure is 3 minutes. There was a golden color in Fujimiya's eyes, and his simple and magnificent temperament spoke of the glory of this planet. I want a laboratory that can build Gundams. Without further ado, Yak pointed at the celestial core in his hand and put forward his request. The world wool paused and nodded. Strange idea, creating a huge machine weapon is far from your strength. Yake shrugged. If everything is divided into feasible and infeasible based on whether it is beneficial or not, wouldn't that be too boring? After all, the reason why Yak built this thing was just for fun. Can? Fujimiya nodded. 200 crystals. As soon as he finished speaking, Yake looked at the world wool with a look of idiocy. Even if I am making toys, I should not be taken advantage of. What I give you is advanced technology from future humans. It is perfect for transforming the heavens. No, it's too expensive. I can't afford it. Yak shook his head repeatedly, looking like a rogue who was saying, you have to give me a cheaper price today. The world wool was speechless. This was also the first time that he was forced to buy or sell something by someone else. After thinking for a long time, he spoke again. In that case, please help me get rid of a soul that should have been exterminated. 150 crystals. Make a deal. Yak's eyes lit up. He slammed the table and agreed immediately. It's a happy decision. I don't have that many crystals left, so the more I save, the better. Looking at Yak calling him boss all the time, the world wool had only one thought left in his mind. Damn, the price is too low. As the world's wool left, Yak also felt that the ground under his feet was squirming wildly, forming a huge hole. Countless steel bars and concrete automatically appeared to fill it, and sophisticated future instruments appeared out of thin air. What just happened? After the earth wool left, Fujimiya regained control of his body and covered his swollen head. Why does my head hurt so much? It feels like someone punched me twice. Because my big brother just left. Yake picked up the ramen and ate it with relish. By the way, do you want your braised egg? Don't give it to me. Before Fujimiya could utter the word want, he saw his boiled egg enter Jack's mouth. Well, one at a time. After dinner, under the guidance of Yak, they twisted off the pendant mechanism on the wall. Nourishes. The wall cracked and an elevator appeared in front of Fujimiya. Fujimiya was stunned at this moment. When did his family get such a thing? The look in his eyes when he looked at Jack became dangerous. This guy actually took advantage of him not paying attention and secretly renovated his house. Hey, what are you looking at? Yake curled his lips and said, I told you that this was built for me by my big brother on the list. The elevator started, and through the transparent elevator walls, Fujimiya could clearly see the two people falling at a very fast speed. Outside, countless intelligent robots were tidying up and cleaning, and there were special guard machines patrolling at all times. It is at least 100 meters deep, and the entire 100 meters below has been hollowed out. Countless scientific research, assembly, testing, and maintenance sites have been built here. Looking up from the sky, the fast-moving drones are dazzling. Who is the so-called number one brother on the list? Fujimiya swallowed, not daring to imagine what he was seeing. What he could confirm was that even the alchemy star, which was known as the most advanced place in the world, was not as advanced as this place. It's like the future. Yake looked at Fujimiya warily. What are you doing? Are you trying to steal my top spot? Fujimiya was speechless, suppressing his anger. Can you build a quantum computer like the Crisis? Can. Suddenly, Fujimiya's eyes lit up. What about repairing the heaven? Of course, why else would I do this? Fujimiya's eyes lit up again. Can the technology here be studied and learned casually? Of course, I made this up. In an instant, Fujimiya smiled, although it was a little stiff, but he was indeed smiling. The corner of Yake's mouth twitched. We don't have to laugh if we don't want to. You just want to use the laboratory, so you can use it as you like. As a high-end talent on the alchemy star, a desire for knowledge and technology is an essential quality, and Fujimiya is no exception. But we have to solve a problem first. What trouble? Alas, it was requested by Big Brother Bang. Learn. Chapter 112. What the hell is that? It's disgusting. Fujimiya frowned in disgust as he looked at the tall, cylindrical, wrinkled thing in the distance. It swayed from time to time in the occasional breeze. Yake chewed the small cake in his mouth, the super-dimensional symbiotic monster Anemo's. The monster was shaking unconsciously, and a faint wailing seemed to come from the flower bud-like bone structure on top, its deepest curse on this land. Symbiosis. Fujimiya looked the monster up and down, but couldn't see any symbiosis. Yake nodded and said, its other companion is called Krayberga. They are all creatures from the Cambrian period 6 million years ago. They were unlucky creatures that died in the mass extinction of life on Earth. Although their bodies died, the sadness and resentment of being abandoned remained in the microscopic world. Because of the interference of some existence, he turned into a ghost and returned to the world. Big Brother Bang has no intention of dealing with this kind of thing. In other words, he doesn't care about it, so he entrusted me to clean it up. Yake threw the last piece of cake into his mouth and said, no one likes to have someone pointing at them and scolding them while they are sleeping, including Big Brother Bang. Just as I was thinking about how to kill Anemo's without causing the other monster to get scared and run away, a woman's voice rang out. Hey, what are you two doing here? Stay away from that thing. Wait, you are Fujimiya. A woman in a white coat got out of a dark green SUV. The vehicle was clearly marked with the base's logo Institute of Ancient Biology. Fujimiya was also slightly surprised. Asano. The two looked at each other, feeling somewhat awkward for a moment. Yake approached quietly. Enemy? Do you want me to help you kill her? My former companion from Alchemy Star. Fujimiya held his forehead and said, also, your voice is too loud. Fujimiya said the last sentence with gritted teeth. Damn, this is so embarrassing. Asano Mirai also looked at Fujimiya with a strange look. She knew that Fujimiya left Alchemy Star for some reason, but why was she hanging out with that man who looked a little weird? I suddenly feel that you are thinking about something rude. Yake felt a chill rising from his tailbone to the top of his head. I didn't. Asano denied. Institute of Paleobiology. In such a remote place, there is actually a laboratory, but it is a bit small. Just as Fujimiya was about to step onto the stairs, he was suddenly blocked by a soft barrier. A weak electric current made his fingertips numb. Fujimiya, you are too lame. In this situation, Yake did not hesitate to offer a laugh, fearing that he would be too slow. Come on if you dare. Fujimiya glared back with dead fish eyes. I'll do it. After saying that, he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. Asano Mirai, who was standing by, looked at the two of them with a smile. It was also the first time she saw Fujimiya with such an expression. Wait a minute, Asano said as he took out the controller from his pocket, but his words got stuck halfway through. Because she saw that the man named Yak actually tore open the defense barrier of his research institute with his bare hands. Unarmed. Yake turned around and asked in confusion, what are you waiting for? Isn't it open now? It's okay. Asano silently took back the controller. Yake said, oh, this defense system belongs to your research institute. If it breaks down, remember to ask Fujimiya for reimbursement. Fujimiya. After walking up a narrow staircase, the three of them came to a slightly dim room. Apart from the light coming from the window, there was almost no other light source. Just find a place to sit. Fujimiya looked around and finally pulled out a chair from the corner where some miscellaneous items were placed. In contrast, Yak was more casual. He directly took down 2 bundles of books from the bookshelf and sat on them with his legs crossed. He looked like a master. The corner of Fujimiya's mouth twitched, and he whispered, "Yak, this is someone else's research institute, not your bedroom." Damn, this is so embarrassing. To be honest, Fujimiya has never been so embarrassed in his life. It's okay, it's okay. They are just some useless books. Asano waved his hands, not thinking there was anything wrong with it. Look, Asano doesn't think it's a big deal. Yak said carelessly, pulling out 2 small cakes from somewhere in his hand. Asano, you're welcome. Looking at the 2 people getting along so well, Fujimiya had a weird feeling. This wasn't right. Obviously, I am Asano's companion, even though we were friends before, but you just met him, Yak, and you already called him Asano, without even a suffix. After some trouble, the 3 of them sat down. Asano said seriously, the thing just now is called an emos, and it looks like a coelenterate. Strictly speaking, it does not belong to any species that exists on Earth. I discovered this from the strata of the eastern great country 600 million years ago. Jack took the black thing and looked at it carefully in the sunlight coming through the window. It felt a bit like a spine. Ding! Doorbell rang. A familiar voice came out of the microphone. Asano, this is Meng, can you open the door for me? Why is he here? Fujimiya frowned. Asano explained, when the monster appeared, I sent a message to XIG, and I guess they sent me, to investigate the scene. After that, he pressed the button under the table and the door of the institute opened. What a nuisance! Fujimiya glanced at him and suddenly saw Ark beside him, wearing a mask for some reason. What are you doing? Under the mask, Yak's voice became cold and robotic. I am a social person and don't like to meet strangers. Fujimiya was speechless. After a while, a man with clear and stupid eyes pushed the door open. Before I could say hello, I saw Fujimiya was also here, with a masked man next to him. Fujimiya, why are you here? Iman took a few steps back vigilantly. He still remembered the kick from last time. Fujimiya said coldly, can't I come here for a tour? Who is that? Imeng pointed at the person next to Fujimiya. Fujimiya said, ah. As soon as he said a word, a big hand immediately pinched Fujimiya's lips, and the scene was very awkward for a while. Yak, who was under the mask, said coldly, guests from Asia Ark. What is your action? Imeng pointed at Yak's hand in confusion. Yake said as a matter of course, Fujimiya ate garlic this morning, and the taste is a bit strong. If looks could kill, Jack would have been chopped into 8 pieces by Fujimiya. Yake cleared his throat twice and said, none of this is important. Let's get down to business. Chapter 114. In the field of quantum mechanics, in the extremely small microscopic world, matter and consciousness are relative, so the fluctuations of the observer's consciousness will have an impact on that thing. Facing Commander Zhang Xiang on the other end of the communicator, Asano carefully explained the answer he got. Ayumeya added, to put it simply, if more people become aware of it, that energy will revive it. It does have a bit of idealistic flavor. Commander Zhang Xiang nodded and said, contact Geobase and strengthen the surrounding security. I will stay in the research institute to see if I can find some breakthroughs. Understand. Communication is disconnected. Yum and Asano breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the people in the base helped, the number of people entering the danger zone would decrease. As long as nothing unexpected happened. On the other hand, Ake and Fujimiya looked as if it had nothing to do with them and they did not care. Fujimiya, what are we having for dinner tonight? Eat whatever ingredients are available. I want to eat Buddha jumps over the wall. Fujimiya stared at Yak in shock, with a look of how dare you say that, and said through gritted teeth, I'll find you some dried abalone, shark fins, and tree bark here, do you want to eat it? The order from the aerospace base was quickly transmitted to all locations. After receiving the order, Geobase immediately dispatched personnel to block all intersections. At the mountain road intersection of Onuma Dam, a red jeep was stopped by base personnel wearing black vests. The young man in the driver's seat said, hello, we are reporters from KCB. We came here to collect materials in order to find the source of water in Tokyo. May I come in? Before coming here, I had never heard that Onuma Dam was a military stronghold, or why there were people stationed there. The base personnel said, I'm really sorry, the water source is very dangerous because of volcanic gas, and it is forbidden to enter there. But we clearly got the interview permit. The young man had just uttered his dissatisfied tone when he was stopped by the middle-aged man in the passenger seat. Okay, we get it. Having said that, he asked the junior in the driver's seat to turn around and leave. However, if they don't see themselves, will they really give up? On the branch of the old tree, Fujimiya held a telescope and said, Yake, where are those reporters going? They don't look like they are leaving. On the other side, Yak hooked his feet on a tree branch and did sit-ups, saying nonchalantly, an Eastern writer once said, there are no roads in the world, but when more people walk on it, it becomes a road. Most of the time, it's not wrong for reporters to want to make a big news story, but in this situation, it will cause big trouble. Soon, the jeep's route became clear. The three reporters actually drove straight onto the mountain trails. Generally speaking, no one except the locals knew these roads. It seems that the reporters have done a very good job of preparation. Do you want to stop it? Fujimiya asked. Why stop them? Ark asked back, if you destroy one monster, another will flee. If the reporter doesn't cause any trouble, how can Anemo's be revived? If Anemo's doesn't revivify, how can Krayberg be seduced? If we can't eliminate them all at once, how can you and I complete the mission? Fujimiya was stunned, what are you talking about? Isn't that your mission? What does it have to do with me? As soon as he said this, Yake jumped up instantly and looked at Fujimiya with the eyes of a scumbag. You use the laboratory I set up and you don't want to work. Is there still kingly law? Is there still law? Okay. Fujimiya sighed. On the mountain path, 3 reporters have entered the Onuma Dam. Not long after they walked, they finally saw the real reason why Geobase blocked this place. A huge monster. Luns, quickly connect to the satellite, we got some big news. As the middle-aged man with the highest status among the few people, he immediately ordered his subordinates to start working. At the same time, the TV broadcasting equipment in Fujimiya's hand lit up, and the female reporter who was one of the 3 people appeared. Behind the female reporter is a huge cylindrical monster. From the moment the broadcast began, Anemo's body began to wriggle constantly, and the anemone-like thing on top of his head opened and closed. Haha, it's about to wake up. Jack laughed softly. Sizzle. A hissing roar came from the anemone's head. The deafening sound gave the 3 reporters closest to it splitting headaches. Anemo's wrinkled skin trembled violently, and the neatly arranged small holes on it also sprayed out disgusting purple pus at this moment. Ah! The female reporter screamed, and the satellite live broadcast had to be paused at this moment. The people closest to the scene were all stained with the purple liquid, with the female reporter being the most contaminated. At this moment, Yak, who was watching from a distance, almost vomited. Fujimiya also had a look of disgust on his face. This thing is too disgusting, it deserves to be killed in a mass extinction. Onuma Dam is the water source area. After being infused with Anemo's liquid, the entire area turned purple and spread through the stream toward the city below. In just half an hour, the water sources in the entire urban area turned purple. To this end, Geobase immediately took water samples for testing. Fortunately, these things do not affect the human body or the environment, but are a kind of pheromone used to convey information to something. This news was immediately transmitted to my dream. Imeng was surprised and asked, this creature has a companion. Asano, who followed Gamua to the scene, immediately remembered the previous research data. Anemo's and a creature called Krayberga are symbiotic. 600 million years ago, Anemo's evolved into a perfect creature capable of surviving in any environment, convinced that it was the chosen creature of the earth. But it knows that it cannot survive with only one species, so it acquires the wisdom of symbiosis with species with completely different abilities. We must not let them merge. Imeng made an immediate judgment. But in an instant, the communication with the base was forcibly cut off, and Asano angrily took off Yum's communication watch and threw it aside. Don't use the comms. Iuha glared at Asano and said, you are still as irrational as before. What will happen if we let them merge successfully? You are the one who doesn't understand. Asano said angrily, I am the only one who can understand their sadness. Clap clap clap. A series of crisp applause came from the corner of the shade, and Fujimiya and Yak walked out slowly. Yake tilted his head and asked, Fujimiya-san, what kind of monsters are there on your alchemy star? A human being actually empathizes with a monster that wants to destroy the world. Fujimiya was silent. He didn't understand either. Yake said, Anemos returned with a lot of hatred for the earth, and the first thing he destroyed was humans, the new species chosen by the earth. You are actually here lamenting about your sadness. I was still too full to be honest. What do you mean? Asano glared at Yak. Yake shrugged nonchalantly, silly boy, it means exactly what it says. History is dregs and should be swept into the trash. Another point, the Anemos you mentioned that needs symbiosis is a perfect creature. For the first time, Yak's contempt was so strong, I have never seen a creature that dares to claim perfection in front of me. No wonder it became extinct. There is a reason for it. Fujimiya, let's go. Yake patted Fujimiya's shoulder and walked towards the monster. What are you going to do? I asked in my dream. See how powerful the so-called perfect creature is. Yak waved his hand. At this moment, Asano and Kazumu's eyes widened. He wanted to fuse the monsters. Chapter 115. Don't. Imeng reached out to pull Yak away. But the next moment, the two of them mysteriously disappeared into the shadows. Yak's movement speed was very fast. Even with Fujimiya in one hand, he could move freely in the dense forest. XIG will be here soon to stop the two monsters from merging. Fujimiya twisted his sore neck, not caring whether the movement of carrying him was elegant, or was it, he was used to it. Fujimiya asked, do you want to fight with XIG? Yake chuckled, they are just a few broken fighter planes, small toys that can't withstand my punch. There is no need to bother with flies. Let them fight first. The ghosts of ancient creatures are also ancient creatures. As they were talking, Team Lightning had already arrived at the battlefield and dropped incendiary bombs in a V-shaped pattern around Anemos. Boom boom boom. In just a moment, the 50-meter radius of Anemos turned into a sea of fire. The red flames devoured everything around it, and the whistling burning wind and thick smoke made it hard for people to breathe. A forest of fire waves was formed. Do not want. Asano wanted to move forward, but was grabbed by Iman. He lay on the ground following the impact of the air wave, letting the scorching wind curl his hair. Stop! Asano pushed Womang away mercilessly, tears streaming down his face. You don't understand the sadness of not being chosen by the earth. We humans have no right to destroy them at all. In the dark, Fujimiya and Ake admired the shocking feeling brought by the rolling flames. Looking at it from a bird's eye view, it had a unique flavor. By the way, you can also listen to the debate between Asano and Kazumi. It's just. Yake felt itchy all over after hearing this. No, I have to scold her and slap her twice to wake her up. Are you always so idle? Fujimiya looked at Ark speechlessly. There are always some people like this who can talk without any pain in their backs. You just have to get used to it. No, I'll feel uncomfortable if I don't go up and scold you. As he spoke, Yake disappeared. Ah, so many of them are not doing their jobs properly. Fujimiya shook his head and continued to enjoy the lightning team grilling Anemos. At this moment, Imeng and Asano stared at each other. A figure suddenly appeared between the two of them and slapped Asano in the face with lightning speed. The force is moderate, and it will not cause any headaches but will not hurt your brain. Ah! Asano fell down with his head tilted and covering his face. Yake casually pulled out a silk scarf, wiped his hands with it, and looked at the woman on the ground with disgust. Ms. Asano, you drank nuclear wastewater and your brain became mutated, right? Who are you and what qualifications do you have to decide the choice of the Earth's will? Or maybe I was too full. I also don't understand why the Earth defines humans as part of nature. As its creation, we are chosen but have no gratitude at all. Lowly thing. That condescending look that was like examining an ant frightened Asano, and the fear buried in his genes was awakened. Yake snorted coldly, and his mood instantly improved a lot. Sure enough, Asano is now timid and obedient like a kitten. The great Mr. L. Yusun once said, knowledge is for talking to fools calmly, power is for making fools talk calmly. Boom! With a loud bang, under the burning flames, the originally plump Anemos shrank rapidly, and finally fell to the ground without being able to hold on. That's great! I was awakened by the loud noise and breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that things were finally over. Suddenly, a white mist covering the forest enveloped Anemos, and in just a few breaths, the flaming forest was completely extinguished. Boom, boom, boom. With heavy footsteps, a new monster appeared, pushing aside the woods, crossing the hills and heading towards Anemo's. The hyperspace symbiotic monster Krayberga is here. Unlike Anemo's, which looked like a sea cucumber, Krayberga was like a standing worm, with its back and legs covered with hard carapaces, its two slender tentacles swaying slightly, and the extremely long claws on its hands longer than its legs. Anemo's, who was lying on the ground, also noticed it, and forced himself to stand up, crawling towards Krabgar. "Stop them!" I dreamed, shouting into the communication device. But, it's too late. The moment the two came into contact, Anemo's covered Krayberga's abdomen like plasticine to protect the relatively vulnerable front. The head that looked like a blooming anemone appeared in the center of Krayberga's abdomen. Sizzle! Woah! Two completely different roars, coming from the head and abdomen respectively. Pa pa pa! A series of red lasers shot out from the lightning team's fighter planes, but the monster's outer shell was too hard, and hitting it was completely useless. And Anemo's, having returned, was hungry and needed to eat. The next moment, as if the abdomen of a sea anemone opened, turbid yellow smoke spread outward in a fan shape, and every human who inhaled the smoke was confusedly controlled and walked towards the monster. The smoke spread quickly, covering the sky and directly enveloping Yak. Yak pointed at the yellow smoke and said, "See, the ancient creatures you are pitying are treating you as food. This is impossible." The yellow smoke was gradually inhaled, Asano's consciousness became blurred, and he walked towards the monster unconsciously. Wiming hurried forward, knocked Asano unconscious with a knife, and carried her under a tree to put her down. "Hey, Ultraman Gaia, do you want to go solve some trouble?" Although Jack was wearing a mask, his eyes revealed a strong interest. "What do you mean? What is Ultraman Gaia? I don't understand." Imeng avoided her gaze. Yakkei stretched his muscles and said, "Then I'll go first." Immediately, he stretched out his hand and a dark divine light stick fell into his hand. "Dark Remnant Soul, come and give our little friend a little shock from the Dark Giant." Cut. The Dark Remnant Soul that had been sealed for a long time did not say much. In an instant, the dark divine light stick floated in front of Yak's chest, and suffocating black mist gushed out, accompanied by the shrill and noisy crows, and a giant from the abyss came with doomsday. Indifferent. Contempt. Towering. It seemed that all adjectives could be used to describe that giant. I stood there, unconsciously touching the sapphire cone on my chest, but I didn't have the courage to take it out. Fujimiya, who was watching from a distance, was stunned for a few seconds, but quickly broke free. He panted heavily, "What kind of monster is this Yake? Why is the giant he transforms into so horrible?" Chapter 116. Look at what real fighting is like, Fujimiya-san. Yak turned his head and glanced at Fujimiya, but he didn't expect that just one glance would make Fujimiya break out in a cold sweat. However, Krayberga was still roaring. He had no appetite for the newly appeared giant, and no deterrent effect was exerted on him at all. "This. Anyone with a little bit of intelligence would be terrified when seeing me." Yakkei asked in astonishment, "Could it be that, Dark Remnant Soul, you have become weaker again?" Defamation. The accusation of the Dark Remnant Soul roared in his ears. The monster was pulled up by an unknown guy. After the resurrection of the undead, its brain was a mess. Apart from a few simple instructions, it didn't know anything. Krayberga is now just an empty shell. Fusion, eating and resisting the enemy were engraved into his body long before it was destroyed. Sizzle. Hungry, hungry, hungry. The monster's orange-yellow eyes were filled with appetite. It had been hungry in the microscopic world for tens of thousands of years. In its eyes, the enemy, Dark Tiga, was just a moving piece of high-energy food. Krayberga's legs looked short, but he moved at an astonishing speed. He rushed forward with his entire body and tried to split the giant with his huge pincers. All of this, in Yak's eyes, was quite funny. If it was me or Fujimiya, we might have to go through some trouble and wait until the red light came on before resolving everything. But who is Yak? He pressed down the furious Dako with his hard hammer, beating Fujimiya so hard that he couldn't raise his head, and forcibly turned the monster into a health product, a cruel beast. Whenever Ake showed any sign of being difficult, Fujimiya would accuse him of match fixing. Facing the attacking giant claws, Jack just squeezed it lightly, and Krayberga could not move forward at all. Ziai. Krayberga tilted its head slightly. The memories in its body told it that it was the most perfect creature in the world, so why was it blocked by food? Jack's hand strength gradually increased, squeezing the giant claw's shell until it creaked, and finally he exerted force suddenly. He tore off Krabja's entire arm. Seeing this scene, Fujimiya's eyes twitched. It turned out that Jack had let him win before. Although he was a resurrected dead soul, the severe pain in his body was real. Krabja fell back a few steps and was grabbed by Yak, who came forward. The two thick tentacles on the head were held in Jack's hands. Just! The dark giant roared and threw Krabgar up and slammed him to the ground. Boom! The monster's huge body smashed down, and the air current it created was like a galloping horse. Fujimiya leaned against the tree trunk tightly, feeling the shaking of the giant tree, and the whole earth was shaking. Fujimiya cursed secretly, "Damn it, this guy is ridiculously strong." The following scene once again refreshed Fujimiya's view of Yak. The huge monster was smashed to the ground again and again by Yak. A clearing had been cleared out of the surrounding mountains and forests, with only the remaining branches and leaves indicating that there was once a forest here. Violent. There was only one word left in Fujimiya's mind: unbridled brutality. He had no idea what the meaning of the giant that Ark transformed into was. But he knew that if this power was in his hands, it would be devoured by the pure darkness in just 3 seconds, and he would be completely turned into a puppet. Sizzle, sizzle. Krayberga, or rather Anemos, collapsed on the ground and groaned. The violent attack just now had made it unable to move, and it had no power to fight back at all. Isn't it a perfect creature? There was a hint of wisdom in Krayberga's cloudy eyes. Why, abandon us, mother? The sound of a candle burning in the wind echoed in the world, like a question or a plea. This question has troubled me for countless years, and is even engraved in every corner of my mind and body. After all, there has to be an answer. There were only 3 people present who could understand: Fujimiya, Gamu, and Yak. This question spanned time and space, and spanned countless years, to their mother's royal guards. Fujimiya was silent. He also wanted to know why. As for my dream, he fell into deep doubt. The creatures that were once known as perfect were destroyed by the earth, and the weak humans. Survival of the fittest, this is the rule set by the earth, a gap that no species can cross. Yak looked down at the eager eyes and said, "You proudly claim perfection, but turn a blind eye to the will of the earth. You claim to be powerful, but do not care about its rules. Moreover, even true gods will die, and even the earth may perish, so why are you so sure that you will live forever? The earth needs rebirth, and the energy of the eternal core needs to flow back. You hold on to the power and refuse to let go, so why did he choose you? Rather than abandoning him, it is more accurate to say that you and your people are abandoning him. You predicted the mass extinction of species, so have you really never thought about the plan of escaping from Earth?" Yak lowered his eyebrows. "Like a god, this is something he cannot allow, so your destruction is God's punishment." The sky was covered by dark clouds, and spider web-like lightning brought wisps of light, which hit the towering body of the dark giant along with the fine rain. In an instant, a black and purple light suddenly burst out. It was the Earth's last mercy to Anemos and Krayberga, a death without pain. Darkness is the Pelion ray. The dark purple light was like a surging wave, gathering into an unstoppable torrent, like a group of ferocious beasts. Wherever the light tide passed, everything was swallowed up. Whether it was hard rock or dense forest, it was reduced to ashes in an instant, destroying everything mercilessly. The atmosphere of destruction and despair was so intense that even Fujimiya felt a deep sense of powerlessness. Boom! Anemos was swallowed by the darkness and turned into black embers that drifted in the sky, with a faint strange look emanating from his eyes. I don't know if it was the regret for not being able to escape punishment, or the remembrance of that golden figure from ancient times. After defeating the monster, the dark giant disappeared. As the giant left, the burning dusk covered the entire forest, like an orange-yellow ocean, sparkling when the wind blew. Fujimiya looked up at the half-sun, feeling the warm light. "So, Ake, Anemos is not the so-called perfect, then what about you?" "It's me." Yak leaned against the tree trunk and pondered for a moment, then finally smiled and said, "You are not strong enough. If a mortal sees me, it would be like a frog in a well looking at the moon in the sky. If you are extraordinary, seeing me is like a mayfly looking up at the sky. What's the meaning? You just need to practice more." Chapter 117. Underground Laboratory. Yak sat on a maglev chair and tapped his fingers on the blue panel in front of him. Directly in front of him was a huge assembly workshop. 8 robotic arms were operating Yak to splice the forged alloy steel plates. With the core of Celestial Realm as the main body and the old bronze bell shape discarded, Celestial Realm is used as the upper body of Gundam. Mysterious and bizarre patterns are engraved on the steel plate to carry and transmit the energy of Dark Tiga. That's right, Jack plans to embed the Dark Remnant Soul as a key and solve the energy problem at the same time. As for the lower body and back armor, Arc planned to use the remaining 2 supernatural machines. As for Fujimiya, he will help Yake again and see if he can learn something at the same time. Yake, what did you do before? As the magnificent masterpiece gradually took shape, Fujimiya was dumbfounded. Can this thing really be made by humans? Just one part of it was 30 meters high, and Fujimiya saw with his own eyes how Jack installed countless weapons into it. Once it is truly completed, the power of this battle mecha will be so great that even 2 current Fujimiyas tied together cannot defeat it. Yake said, I was just a small team leader before, responsible for logistics, and my influence was not very important. Looking at the crazy scientist, Fujimiya couldn't believe it at all. With such talent and ability, who would be so stupid as to let him be the logistics team leader? Half an hour later, Jack finally completed the assembly according to the design drawing, and he breathed a sigh of relief, looking at his success. Well, comfortable. The only regret is that Daegu is not here. If Daegu were here, we would put him in and try to see if we can squeeze out the energy of Ultraman Tiga for Gundam. There should be new changes. At this moment, a victory team member who was on patrol sneezed. Daegu, do you have a cold? Lena asked with concern. Daegu shook his head, I just suddenly had a bad feeling. AK. After finishing building blocks, Yak was drinking tea leisurely when a familiar voice suddenly rang in his ears. Gaia World will. At this time, Fujimiya, who couldn't bear it any longer, had returned to his room to sleep, so Jack was the only one left in the huge laboratory. A golden figure floated up from the ground. As for his characteristics, he was a bit short. It must be because he is not yet an adult. Yake raised his eyebrows, it seems that you really like humans. Even your concrete form is human. The will of each earth has its own little hobbies. For example, the will of the world of Tiga, although spherical in shape, is good at tricking Yak. Gaia World will did not refute it because it was the truth. As the mother of all life on this planet, I always have some of my favorite lives. Of course, it would be better if you could use them less. This time, Yake cried out in injustice on the spot, slander, all slander, I will report you to the Pan-Earth Communication Group. These fights were all in remote areas, and humans are also part of nature. I haven't said that I want to destroy humans either. That's true. Apart from that time when he scared Daegu, Yak didn't say much about things like world destruction, cleansing, purification, etc. Aliens don't count. Of course, it doesn't count if the Earth's will takes the initiative to request it. As for whether to do it or not, it depends on Yak himself. According to my perception, there is a life form approaching the Earth at a very fast speed. The energy contained in it can replenish what I need. As for its shell, it is made of cosmic minerals, which can be used to make joints and surface reinforcement for your toys. Gaia's World will snatched Yak's teacup and sipped it gently. Yake was surprised and asked, does the will of the Earth also need to supplement vitamins? Your description may be strange, but it's not wrong. Okay, I'll go take a look. Yake stood up and left. XIG Aerospace Base. After finishing the flight training, I said goodbye to the members of the Seagull team and returned to my dormitory. As soon as I closed my eyes and lay down, that devilish voice rang out. Ultraman, wake up! Open your eyes! I am Ultraman Gaia. At this moment, I was forced to open my eyes. Actually it was Jack who pried his eyes open with his hands. Yake said with a playful smile, woohoo, are you happy to see me, Meng-chan? Not happy. Meng slapped Yaka's hand away, looking resentful, can't you pick a time when you're alive? It's always at night, and I'm as tired as a cow or a horse. These days, Yak would pull him out of bed at bedtime every night and drag him to do devilish training, so he only got 4 hours of sleep at night. He didn't know how he survived. For a normal person, with this intensity and sleep time, he would have been exhausted to the point of vomiting blood. Yake comforted him, nonsense, you are worse than cattle and horses. So how are we training tonight? Meng had given up struggling. Yake smiled mysteriously, let's do a practical training today. Coincidentally, This is when the radio sounded, "Attention all ships, issuing a level 3 alert order, a huge heat source has appeared in the universe and is approaching the Earth at an extremely fast speed." Yakei pulled me up and pushed me out the door. "Work overtime, boy." In the command room. When I walked in, most people had already arrived and were looking at me. Unconsciously feeling a little guilty, he glanced secretly at Yak in the shadows. "I dream you are doing there. Why don't you come here quickly?" Commander Zhangxiang frowned slightly. I Meng quickly responded, "Okay, okay." He clearly saw Jack standing in the shadows, drinking tea, but the rest seemed invisible. The images of on-site detection have been transmitted to the computer. A huge sphere was embedded between several buildings. Its shell was like a multi-faceted crystal, emitting a disturbing red color. The steaming mist around it made it difficult to breathe. "This thing is so hot." On the fighter plane, Kageo wiped the sweat from the tip of his nose while observing the situation. The on-site structural diagram on the computer shows that huge object is slowly falling. Iman's eyes widened. It releases extremely high heat to melt everything around it. If it comes into contact with the natural gas pipeline directly below, the entire city will be caught in the natural gas explosion. After analysis, Commander Zhangxiang immediately realized the seriousness of the problem. "Qiaoji, how long will it take to withdraw the natural gas?" "At least 80 minutes. Said a blonde beauty. Commander Zhangxiang pondered for a moment and said, "Director D, use the liquid nitrogen bomb to cool it down." Understand. Chapter 118. After launching the liquid nitrogen bomb, due to the rebound of rapid cooling, destructive hot wind will be generated around it. You must retreat quickly while launching it. Kageo heard Director Tsutsumi's reminder. Understand. How is the work of dispersing the citizens in the area going? Kageo asked in order to ensure that everything went smoothly. Qiaoji said, "The evacuation of citizens was completed a minute ago." "No. There is a cell phone signal coming from the mission area." This news put all preparations for the mission on hold. Kageo hovered the fighter plane above the monster, waiting for orders at any time. The thing the monster created was so big that it was normal for 1 or 2 citizens to be missed. However, according to Jack's calculations, it would be difficult to survive in a building that was almost crushed to pieces when you were not far from the monster without some luck. "It's like this. I don't know if it's good luck or bad luck." Commander Zhangxiang asked, "Qiaoji, where is the correct radio signal transmission point? If the exact location can be determined, even the lightning team on standby can send out 1 or 2 people to complete the rescue as quickly as possible." Qiaoji looked embarrassed. It was disturbed by the thermal vibration of the flying object and could not be located. "But, there are still people in that area. Let the Seagull team go." Zhangxiang said in a deep voice, "We must rescue as soon as possible." Clear. After a while, the hangar of the aerospace base opened, and the Seagull rescue team's plane flew towards the monster's location at the fastest speed. Time passed minute by minute, and the heat around the monster was still being released. Commander Zhangxiang clenched his fists and stared at the warning line on the data panel. Once the monster reaches the cordon, he must give the order regardless of whether there are people there or not. If a natural gas explosion occurs, the casualties will be more than just 1 or 2 people. 1 minute. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Time passed slowly. The monster's position was close to the warning line, and its diamond-like shell also released red energy. The Seagull team on the other side also found the location of the victim. Zhangxiang took a deep breath and clenched his hands. "Lightning team, fire the liquid nitrogen bomb immediately." At this time, Imeng quickly said, "Director, please quickly detonate the liquid nitrogen bomb when the monster is about to be hit, so that the damage caused by the hot wind attack can be minimized." The communication network was never shut down, so both the Seagulls and the Lightning team on the scene could hear it. Zhangxiang said in a deep voice, "Do as my dream tells you." Understand. Understand. At the scene, the Lightning team has already taken action and is preparing to find a suitable position to attack. As for the Seagull team, they let the victims find a thick wall to hide and use the huge size of the rescue aircraft as the first layer of protection. Heatwave disasters may cause certain damage to the aircraft body, but compared with these, it is more important to ensure the safety of personnel. Liquid nitrogen bomb launch. At Kageo's command, 3 fighter planes simultaneously fired liquid nitrogen bombs, which exploded immediately when the monster got close. White liquid nitrogen covered the monster's surface like rain and fog, and frost condensed. In an instant, the suffocating burning sensation seemed to disappear. The next moment, the rebounding hot wind swept in like a tsunami, and the concrete and steel bars as high as a person were blown into the air and finally fell down. The car rolled several times on the ground and the glass shattered all over the ground. Fortunately, this hot wind was short-lived and did not cause any major impact. Everyone in the base breathed a sigh of relief. The monster also stopped moving downwards at this moment, seemingly frozen by liquid nitrogen, with no signs of activity. Boom! The shrill explosion rang in the ears of the people on the scene. The originally calm monster suddenly grew tentacles that pierced through the surrounding damaged buildings. The spiky crimson tentacles seemed to be made up of some kind of dense tendons. When the smoke cleared, everyone saw that the spherical monster had unfolded its body, revealing the red tissue inside. Its weird and twisted appearance made people feel slightly uncomfortable. The lightning team took over the front battlefield. The seagulls did not stop and prepared to rescue people from the damaged lower east wall. Within the base, Atsuko turned around and said, "The natural gas in the E7 area has been removed. Finally, there is some good news." On the other side, I looked at the data on the computer in amazement. The monster has not only changed in shape, its weight has increased by nearly 80 times compared to when it flew here. This structure. 80 times. Atsuko looked at Mimeng in disbelief, thinking she had heard it wrong. Imeng nodded and confirmed, it is because the temperature rises that the density increases greatly, and therefore it becomes heavier rapidly. The deformation is caused by the cooling bomb, which makes the high-density molecules lose balance. Wait a minute, the reason why it became heavier was because of the red vortex at that time. Director Di frowned slightly. Imeng nodded, yes, with its huge mass, it creates a strong gravitational field around it. Once the cooling blast wears off, it will become active again. At this time, Xiaoji suddenly shouted, "The entire Kanto area is affected and started to sink." Imeng said, "I have contacted Geobase and asked them to send anti-gravity missiles over. We only need to launch missiles at the monster to offset the gravity field it releases, but..." Imeng hesitated a little. When negative mass is generated in his body, that guy might fight to the death. Commander Zhongxiang said, "I dream you will go to the scene immediately and command the missile launch." "How's it going with the seagulls?" Director Di said, 3 minutes, they gave the news that the rescue mission can be completed in 3 minutes. Okay. Everyone, move. Understand. The newly launched fighter plane was a little crowded, and Imeng said helplessly, "Calm down, Yak. This is just an ordinary fighter plane. With your armor, it doesn't have much technical content." "I know." Yak shrugged. "I'm just quite interested in your intelligence system. Even though it's a bit low level, it's still good to be able to achieve this level. This so-called intelligent system is the intelligent operating system that I had installed before. What I didn't expect was that Yak could see it at a glance. What's our plan?" I dreamed, looking at the monster's body getting closer and closer. Yake leaned aside and asked in surprise, "What plan? Don't you have any specific action plan?" "Oh, you throw the missiles at the monster, then I throw you at the monster, and then you two fight each other." "Gone." Yake looked at me with disdain. "For a truly strong person, there is the power to crush everything, just like you have calculated everything." Chapter 119. Although I really want to refute you, but what you said makes sense. Imeng hesitated for a long time and finally got together this sentence. "I was hit by Garen's Q before, and it turned out that I was not strong enough. Now that I have gone through training, can I really become stronger?" The almost inhuman training has greatly improved Meng's physical fitness, but it may not work on Ultraman Gaia, it remains to be considered. Attention, there is a vortex of red energy appearing on the monster again, everyone fire missiles at once. Kagyo's voice was sonorous and powerful in the headset, "Smash it for me." Understand. The next moment, the missile bays at the bottom of the 3 fighter planes opened, and missiles were fired without restraint at the monster. Boom! Amid the violent explosions, a small hole was opened in the originally extremely solid red shield. Imeng also reacted quickly and realized that the lightning team was creating an opportunity for me, so I quickly turned on manual pre-aiming and launched an anti-gravity missile remotely. There were only a few spots of light on the dim ground, and I saw something with a flaming tail rushing towards the monster at an extremely fast speed. Boom! The flame after the explosion was not very big, but in just the moment of contact, the originally indestructible energy collapsed and turned into bits of debris and dissipated. One's own gravitational field collapsed in an instant, and the rebounding negative energy washed through the body. The pain was no less than scraping bones to treat poison, and it was scraping bones all over the body. This moment, the light heat magic stone Resite has awakened. The lightning team's attack has not yet ended, and they are still firing lasers around the exposed parts of the monster. In an instant, the originally calm Resite suddenly jumped up, and a blood-red tentacle made of unknown substance slapped the fighter plane, and the huge force directly blew the fighter plane away. Sparks flew and the fighter plane was paralyzed in an instant. The source of the great river. As the captain, Kagyo shouted loudly, "Jump out of the plane! Jump out of the plane quickly!" But just now, it was just a little bit away from the cockpit, the whole body of the aircraft was almost bent, and the emergency escape system was completely paralyzed. Da Haewon pulled the emergency lever hard, but it was useless. "Can't jump out of the plane! Can't jump out of the plane!" Gritting his teeth, as if accepting his fate, Da Haewon slumped in his chair, waiting for death to come. "Yake, I'll teach you here." Seeing this situation, I had no time to think. I took out the sapphire cone, transformed into Gaia, and rushed straight to the source of the river that was about to fall. Yak was left standing there stupidly. "No, buddy, I haven't thrown you yet." According to the original plan, it was supposed to be Yak who threw Wiming out to perform a flying trapeze, but this guy just jumped by himself. Tisk, no one is as obedient as Fujimiya. Yake sat in the driver's seat bored, his eyes unconsciously scanning the intelligent driving system. He was free anyway, so why not add some spice to this thing? He did it right away. Jack reached around his waist and took out a whole set of tools from somewhere. He picked up the crowbar and started to violently open the lid. On the other side, Womeng, who was completely unaware of the situation, reached out with his backhand, grabbed the fighter plane, turned his body in the air, and landed steadily in a gliding posture. It's just that two long grooves appeared on the originally clean road surface. Why does Gaia feel a little different? Kagyo on the fighter plane was a little dazed. Being at the scene, looking at the giant not far away from him, he always felt that something was different. It seems to be spirit. Imeng gently placed the fighter plane in his hand on the ground, and immediately got into position, ready to fight at any time. Feeling the strong power in his body, even Imeng was a little dazed. Am I that strong? Suddenly, Yak's voice echoed in his mind, and there seemed to be a tinkling sound. The human body and the giant of light are on the same line. Don't always think that the two are unrelated. When your body is strong enough, you can accept more power. Similar to a wooden barrel, the bigger the barrel, the more water it can hold. As for more details, I'm too lazy to go into details since you won't understand it anyway. Come on, my dream beast, you have been strengthened, go and deliver it quickly. Then, there was another round of clanging, mixed with Yak's muttering, "What kind of people are XIG? Why is the emergency lever brake placed here? No wonder the ejection failed." Knock, knock. The sound of the metal colliding was like a heavy hammer hitting the heart of my dream. He had a bad feeling. But the fight continued. I shook my head, rushed forward, and kicked the monster. By the way, monsters, don't blow me up. I am useful. The voice of Yak, which had originally disappeared, echoed in Wiming's head again. Wiming, who was extremely nervous because of the battle, kicked in the air and fell heavily to the ground. Tisk, what a loser. Yak left in disgust. Rizet, who had begun to take human form, seized the opportunity and lashed Gaia with his two arms like knight's spears. Imeng quickly protected my chest with my arms, preparing for the attack, but when the tentacle called Swordhorn really hit me, Imeng had a strange idea. It seems, it doesn't hurt that much. As soon as the thought came to me, I rolled over, pushed myself up with my hands, and leaped into the air with the help of my powerful core strength. I stepped on the mineral shell on Rizet's chest with my feet, kicked the monster out, and landed steadily on the ground. Although it was kicked out, Rizet did not fall down. A large amount of hot gas came out of its legs, and it forced its body to support itself while rushing towards Gaia. The two tentacles instantly became extremely hard, like a medieval knight charging on horseback. It's very fast, but its disadvantage is also obvious. It can only charge in a straight line. Imeng dodged by slightly turning sideways, grabbed the monster's shell with both hands, and with all my strength, my arm muscles expanded almost to one-fold, and I pulled the monster up and threw it to the ground. Boom! A big hole was knocked out in the ground of the city by Rezite, but its vitality was still strong. When it found that its strength was not enough to compete with Gaia, it immediately changed its strategy. 2 tentacles wrapped around Gaia's body and held it tightly. The next moment, the flashing red heat instantly eroded Gaia's body. Zilla. Just like being grilled, I felt the burning pain in my dream, but still gritted my teeth and tried to break free. For a while, the two were in a stalemate. No way, brother. You are the light of the earth. You should absorb this little bit of heat. A man in armor was sitting on a rooftop not far away. It was Yak. Yak was speechless. No wonder you guys are so weak. The light turned red after 2 hits and you wouldn't even absorb the energy given to you. Following Jack's reminder, Imeng stopped struggling and turned around to absorb the monster's heat. When Rezite tried to let go, he found that Gaia was holding it and would not let him go. In an instant, yin and yang reversed. After a few breaths, the completely exhausted Rezite collapsed to the ground, exhausted. Yak nodded in satisfaction and snapped his fingers, and the huge monster disappeared. Yak himself also disappeared at the same time, leaving only the following sentence: I made some small improvements to your fighter, don't thank me too much. Chapter 120. Smith Marseille, Ziwian. Silence, dead silence. Who are you? My dream's lips trembled slightly, and my pupils trembled with disbelief. What the hell was that accent? What on earth had that bastard Yake done to his dear pal? It would be fine if it was a female voice, but from the very beginning my dream was set for a male voice. Just imagine that a man who smells like a pancake calls you master, your sanity value will drop dramatically. I dream of mountains, but I failed. The first month of the year is the new year. The first day of the Lunar New Year. It's a family reunion. Yak hummed a little tune and walked happily towards the laboratory, with Rezite, who was like a dead dog, following behind him. I think the pal that I improved will definitely make me ecstatic. I guess I already admire him to the extreme at this moment. What is a true technology expert? Zilla. The door of the laboratory opened, and a figure sat on a recliner, holding a bowl as big as a human head in his hand. Fujimiya was slurping his ramen. Hum. Hey, you're back. She swallowed a mouthful of ramen fiercely and showed an apologetic and shy smile. I'm sorry, I thought you weren't coming back tonight, so I didn't prepare anything for you. In secret, Fujimiya retreated strategically. Finally I got my chance, stupid arc. Yake was stunned for a moment, then waved his hand nonchalantly. It's okay, we're all brothers. Then, he dragged the dying monster, which had been shrunk into a ball, past Fujimiya. Is it really that simple? Fujimiya was a little confused for a moment. Nothing had happened. He had already made plans to snatch food from Yak's mouth. But the moment he lowered his head, Fujimiya's face froze. Damn it, where are my boiled eggs? Fujimiya Hiroya, defeated. On the other side, while chewing the tea-flavored boiled egg, Jack threw Relos into the huge reactor. It goes without saying that the friendly sponsorship from the Earth is really worth the investment so that I can grow up happily. Pop! Snapped his fingers. The suspended seat automatically flew to the bottom of Jack's butt and floated him up. IZ, start the vital signs scan, energy isolation, preheating system, and cooling system. Yake instructed, resting a hand on his temple and crossing his legs. Clear. Diddy. The huge reactor lit up with a red warning light, and a blue light curtain fell, isolating the monster to prevent energy runaway during the condensation process. Small flying reconnaissance vehicles flew up and down Rezite, quickly checking the monster's physical condition. Soon, sheets of listed data and vital signs curves appeared before his eyes, and Jack glanced at them casually. It's nothing serious, he just felt a little weak after being sucked by Gaia, and then became mentally unstable due to the fright. As long as he is given enough energy, he will be full of energy again in a few hours. All preparations were done, and Yake pressed the start button. This specially made reactor began to rotate. Yes, it just rotated. The reactor is composed of 3 parts, each of which is engraved with different patterns and corresponds to a substance, namely the sky, the earth, and the ocean. The 3 are assembled together and when started they will rotate at the prescribed frequency and method. Things were going very smoothly. The sky part, which uses the core of the heaven as its initial energy source, absorbs a large number of typhoons. The earth part is simple, it can just connect to the earth and absorb it directly. the ocean part is a little more troublesome, after all, it is not in the ocean, and it is impossible to flood Tokyo. So Yak specially dug underground water veins to allow groundwater to surround the reactor. Once the heat from the earth evaporated, it flowed out through the pipes in the sky. At most there will be heavy rain these days, but other than that there is no harm. This is Yak's genius design, which makes the best use of the 3 sub-wills of the earth. Yak smiled and said to himself, "Tisk, I'm so awesome, I'm the god of shit." Zi. All I heard was a harsh metallic friction sound, like someone scraping fingernails on a blackboard. The blue light of the ocean part went out. Yak's eyes widened. What happened? My reactor stopped. Pucci. Outside the space, a petite figure covered in golden light laughed unkindly. Yak, defeated. Iz. Veins bulged on Jack's forehead. Shame, shame. Thinking about how many weird inventions Yak has made since he started working at TPC, except for the fact that he failed a little bit, this is the first time that he has failed halfway. Master, after testing the reactor, there is no program error, but there is a fault in the energy transmission. Energy fault? Yak frowned. That was impossible. He was the one who personally chose the location for the underground water vein and had it dug out by a drone. It's impossible for a robot to cut corners, that's bullshit. Izu's cold female voice echoed in the huge laboratory. According to the drone's feedback, the underground water vein connected to the reactor has dried up. In short, the water was out. Yak had a "are you kidding me" expression on his face. Really? Izuku replied. Earth's will, please reply. Out of desperation, Yak could only ask the Earth's will for a solution. Half an hour. There was no answer, but he did give a direction. Yak raised his eyebrows. Does this mean that I should go there? I asked Yiza to check it out, and it seems that the place is a temple used for sacrifices. Could it be that they found a few monks to perform rituals to exorcise evil spirits? Fujimiya. I'm coming. Hearing Yak's call, Fujimiya walked into the laboratory with a resentful look on his face. The moment he saw Rizet, Fujimiya was frightened by this strange and huge monster, but he quickly calmed down. Given Jack's carefree personality, bringing back a monster is no big deal. Yak jumped off the chair and landed in front of Fujimiya. Let's go to the Ancestral Hall. Ancestral Hall? Hey, let me make it clear in advance that I don't do such immoral things as smashing other people's ancestors. Fujimiya jumped away immediately, looking determined to cut off ties with scum like Yak. Is that the kind of person I am in your eyes? Almost. Just 0.9 of an infinite loop. Happy. Yak protested against this groundless slander, but seeing that it was futile, he dragged Fujimiya away. Fujimiya quickly braked. Brother, you are really my brother, take a rest first. Why? Yak looked back in confusion. You are aloof, you are great, you are not a human being, but I am. Fujimiya was almost numb. He hasn't had a good night's sleep these days. If he continues to toss and turn for a few more days, he will really die of sudden death. Okay. Yak shrugged and let Fujimiya escape. He also needed to go to sleep. As Godzilla, he consumes less energy after becoming a human. Although he doesn't need to sleep, this habit still remains. The moment he stepped out of the laboratory, Yak seemed to remember something. As he twisted his body, a spear of light shining with brilliant thunder whizzed out and pierced into Rizet's core. Don't think I don't know what you were laughing at just now.